It's EWBSX, the cyberbully. Go ahead, put that Burger King crown on. You've earned it.
You may even get tired of winning, and you'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore. Mr. President, it's too much. And I'll say, no, it isn't. We have to keep winning. We have to win more. We're going to win more.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Astrolabe. It is, no, this is not going to be the new time. No, it will not work. We cannot do this long term. But I couldn't put a show together overnight because the internet was down here. It is absolutely raining wildebeest and water buffaloes outside. And I've noticed that when the weather gets wonky here, the AT&T fiber gets a little wonky itself. So it wasn't until about 7:30 this morning that it became usable. It's like it wasn't totally like off, but it was like, you know, it takes 90 seconds to load a web page kind of thing. And then sometimes you wait 90 seconds and then it just like 404s and you have to start over again. Very, very irritating. So I spent a while troubleshooting that, realized this is just an AT&T thing. Of course, I had to do like a whole password reset, like rigmarole thing because there's the AT&T app and then there's the AT&T Smart Home Manager app that apparently have separate login credentials or something like that. And the accounts have to be linked. They're linked by the email. Both accounts, I can see that they both have the same. Anyways, I spent way too long dealing with all of that. Finally was like, absolutely fuck this. I'm going to take a nap. I went and took a nap for a couple hours, which is what will enable me to go into the middle of the day today, which is actually the middle of the night for me. But I was not going to miss the show because I had some good stuff. I definitely had some stuff I wanted to get to because it could take a little bit of time, and you know, more stuff is probably going to happen this next week, and some of these things tend to get pushed down the stack. So I wanted to make sure I got to it. So we are labing. Who knows? I may wind up switching Tuesday and Wednesday tomorrow just because I've got stuff I've got to do tonight. I don't know if I'm going to be able to go to sleep before I don't know, like 2 a.m. So I might have to rearrange some things. Might end up having to do have no show tomorrow, and then we'll do a show Wednesday. I'll let you guys know. Follow the Telegram channel. Follow me on X. Join the King Pill Discord. There's all the different ways I push notifications out. I try to make sure everyone has some way that they can access it. So just stay tuned, and I'll let you know whether or not there is going to be a show tomorrow. Let's see. What else? There's a couple other housekeeping things I needed to address. I can't get the chat widget thing to work for the chat over on Rumble. I know it doesn't get that much business, but occasionally it gets a little activity. So apologies to you guys. I just encourage you to come over to Kick and watch at kick.com/kingpilled. I'll try to keep an eye on the chat, but I can't guarantee anything. Happy name day to Mrs. Kingpilled. That's right. That's one of the things. Happy name day to Mrs. Kingpilled, and also, no, it's just Mrs. Kingpilled. That's the only significance of birthdays today. Yes, happy birthday, Mustache Man. There was something else that I was gonna say, and it has escaped me now. I can't think of what it was. I thought it was important, and I was going to try to get to it as quickly as possible. But anyways, so thank you. Big shout out to Colin Rosh, Austin Trees, Barnden, Nematoder, Jordan Gibb, Aspiring Midwit, bunch of Patriots resubscribing over on Kick. And then we got ourselves one of these. Hello? Oh, come on. Don't tell me it's going to do this shit today. Why? There's no reason. There's no reason for it to not work. Is this seriously going to be a thing? Hold on. Hold on. Let's do this and see if that changes it. There we go. The gayest man.
They don't understand the things I say on Twitter.
I'll be part of the replay gang. Golfing for my birthday.
Patriot Dave. The Gatriot, they might say.
You know, Dave Johnson is the gayest person to ever walk this green earth.
Here is the biggest, gayest man in the world.
Wow.
So gay.
So gay.
And then Pale Morning Dude said some kicks, and Dr. Doom Guy is inundating us with gifted subs. Thank you, Patriot. He's got 10 so far. Borp has gifted a sub, and that is, yeah, that's where we're at so far. Dr. Doom Guy coming in with the 10 gifted subs so far this morning. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you. And yes, I believe it also is Dave's birthday. I knew that there was another person, but I couldn't think of it on the fly. But I believe that there was that it is Dave's birthday as well. Is that what he just said in his golfing for his birthday? Yes. Dave's birthday as well. So happy birthday, Dave. Happy birthday, Uncle H. And happy name day to Mrs. Kingpilled. Did I need to fix the...
We're all 40-something, moderately successful white guys with a house, couple of kids, and a dog. You're being mogged by guys in polo shirts and knee-high socks?
The polo shirt appreciator. Thank you. 40-something. Speak for yourself, sir. Speak for yourself. Okay, thank you for the tip. Let me... Mrs. Kingpilled has pointed out that I forgot to reset the tip goal. So let me do that here real quick. And then I have a drawing to do real quick because I neglected to do the drawing at the end of the last episode. But I did say that I was going to do a drawing then. So I got to do that here real quick. And someone is going to win a little money. And then if we hit the goal for today, if we get up to $400, if we get past $400, then I will do another drawing. And there's no ceiling on what the total number can be. Obviously, you get 10% of the total tip take. And I will send it to you in the form of a digital gift card. No purchase necessary. Just go to form.kingpill.com. Give me something to call you and a way to contact you. And then I will do, if we hit the goal again, then I will do this. I will throw you on a spreadsheet. And we will do a quick drawing. So we've got 34 names right here, right now. So between 1 and 34 gives us answer 16. Who is 16? Hunter. Hunter, you are the winner. $25 will be coming your direction. I think the total was like $217 or something like that. Most gift card, I've realized that most gift card retailers, it's easy to just do round numbers, and I'm not going to shortchange you. So $25, $25 for Hunter, and congratulations. Now, hopefully we do another drawing here at the end. And I'll hit you up, Hunter, based on the contact info you gave. And I don't actually know who Hunter is. I don't. Someone just gave his actual name, or not his screen name. Maybe he's a replay gang. Could be a replay gang guy. I remember the other thing I was going to say. Apologies to those of you who are trying to watch the Pseudolabe from Saturday. When I uploaded it, what I'm known to do is I get it set to upload, and then I walk away, and then I forget to come back and actually hit publish on it once it's uploaded. I've done that a number of times, so it's uploaded late. But in this case, I forgot to hit publish. Then when I went and hit publish, then it failed. It failed to post for some reason. So it is up now. You should absolutely watch it. We watched The Departed, and it was tremendous. Just a legendary movie. Legendary. And it's so much fun to sit there and watch it with you guys. And Mr. Suda was in his bag. Every single one of the wave breaks was an absolute heater. It was so good. So good. So make sure you go and watch that. It should be up on Substack now, which is probably the best place to rewatch when I don't forget or have it fail when I try to upload it. Substack is probably the best place for the replay gang. I know a lot of people like to use YouTube. The YouTube status is tenuous, and everyone tells me that it doesn't show up in their algorithm at all. I do have my channel strike is going to be leaving the channel here in 5 days. April 25th will be 90 days since I got a strike. So if I don't get another one, then perhaps the algorithmic visibility will improve a little bit. That's what I'm hoping. But anyways, the best place is typically going to be Substack, I would imagine. Best UI, most convenient, most stable, that sort of thing. I have no idea why it came down off of Kick. Normally the Kick's replays are supposed to stay up there. I don't know why it got pulled. But it is also on Rumble. So there are lots of different places that you can go watch it. What are we talking about today? Palantir's 22 Theses, and then Peter Thiel on the Antichrist, and how Trump turned Hormuz into Iran's weakness. So the things are kind of... I noticed that sort of as push notifications were coming in, I was noticing that things are happening with... there's another delegation going to meet in Islamabad. And there's stuff that's happening there, but I'm pretty well convinced that much of what's happening at the moment is kind of a let's say like a self-aware kayfabe kind of man. It's probably kayfabe is kind of self-aware by definition, but it's like it's not total. It is kayfabe, but it's like a 70% kayfabe. But there's still stuff around the margins where there's legitimate jockeying for position and leverage and everything. So there's an element of it that's being where the United States and Iran are interfacing in a hostile manner much more in public than they are in private. But there's power faction stuff to be worked out in Iran, and all the propaganda's flying fast and furious now. So. I'm not going to follow it minute by minute. I've got a little bit of interesting stuff on it here today, but by and large, I'm aware there's sort of the things that are happening, and if something big goes on over the next couple of days, then we'll talk about it here on the show. But I want to talk about this Palantir's 22 Theses thing, which is very interesting. And I went. Part of what took so long to get the show going once I got the internet was I went and collected a whole bunch of clips, because I don't know how many of you guys have actually sat and listened to the main Palantir guys talk, but you definitely should. And maybe if you haven't, after you hear these 22 Theses, you kind of can sense the spirit that they're being written in. Then I think it's worth recognizing the caliber of mind that is motivating this company, that is producing things like this 22 Theses. And it also signifies there's been corporate activism for a long time, but this is a different flavor of corporate activism, coming out of the so-called tech right. There are ways in which the tech right, I think, has tendencies toward being even more based than whatever you'd call like the trad right or something like that. And because there's kind of not to say that Nietzscheanism is base, but there is like a Nietzschean aspect to them that makes them far less, emotional. They're far more like focused and blunt and direct in like a confident sort of a way that I don't know. They aren't besought. Is that the right word? Besoughten by this like excessive self-flagellation, sort of like or like kind of a victim like, oh, the whole world is against us. It's all we are set upon, and woe is us. They don't have that. So they're it's kind of a feature and a bug that they are coldly rational. And there's something that's very refreshing right now about hearing this cold rationality. Very a pragmatic confrontation of power and ethics and great power conflict and all, and like sort of like a desire to be as based in reality as possible. Now, the danger with them obviously is that they err going the other direction. They err on the side of not to sound like a lib, but they err on the side of tyranny, of like the actual sense of tyranny that people are fearful of, like that really impersonal, cold, hard metal crushing your face into the ground. Like they will err on the side of that total absence of empathy, like the machine world. So we've been in the land of the longhouse. We're not going to be in the land of the longhouse for much longer. In many senses, we are already out of it, and people just haven't realized it. But the meta has changed very much. That's not to say that you can't find similarities or parallels between the old meta and the new meta, but because one is the product of the next. The next one emerges as a reaction to the previous. But like you need to be thinking about skating to where the puck is going and not focusing so much on where it is right now. So there's actually, since like September or October of last year, I've been sitting on a couple of articles about Peter Thiel's conference that he was having last fall. Like a seminar or I don't know what you would call it. It was a paywalled. It was like $200 to go attend, where he was just kind of sitting on stage and just elaborating extemporaneously on his musings about the Antichrist, and some very interesting things that came out of that. There was a guy who broke the rules and was taking notes or recording or something like that, and then publishing notes on it. And he pushed them out publicly, and they replied immediately. They said, "Your ticket is revoked. You're not." So there's like no cameras allowed. They didn't want. It was supposed to be like a kind of a private event, but $200 to get in is not going to be super private. And so I've had these articles just kind of sitting there, but I haven't found the time or the place really to sort of fit them in. But now I think it's becoming a lot more relevant. Now, the bulk of those I'm going to save for the next episode, assuming that there isn't, I don't know, like World War III doesn't kick off or something. Speaking colloquially, I believe that we've been in World War III for, I don't know, at least 10 or 12 years now. But as long as something else doesn't arise to just totally take up the bandwidth, then I'm gonna go into some of those articles with Peter Thiel and the Antichrist on tomorrow or Wednesday's show, depending on whichever is the next one that I do. And there's some very interesting commentary. He's like one of the most he's so misunderstood. He's one of the most misunderstood public figures out there. Like he is a man who defies categorization. And a lot of people want to say, oh, well, what you see is what you get. But if there is anyone for whom it is not true that what you see is what you get, Peter Thiel is that man. So his musings on the Antichrist are very interesting. And he also has some commentary on J.D. Vance and his concerns about J.D. Vance, particularly as regards the Pope, which is kind of an interesting thing to bring back up now in the current time. So, yeah, he's very much like Trump. That's a good point, Zoomer Dylan. He's very much like Trump, but in a very different way. That's a, ooh. I'm going to have to think about that one. The ways in which Thiel and Trump are the same, but yet in sort of like opposite ways. One of them is very, very bombastic. One of them is very reserved. One of them is very ostentatious. The other one is very like bland. One of them is very like has no filter whatsoever. The other one is overly filtered. Very interesting. That's a good thought. Thank you for that, Zoomer Dylan. So I'll talk about that tomorrow because I wanted to make sure that I was able to read this article that I mentioned last week by David Brooks over at The Atlantic about history is running backwards, why reactionaries are taking over the world. And this actually fits in very well with the Palantir's 22 Theses. So I wanted to make sure I squeezed that one in here for today. But I got a whole bunch of videos, video clips of Alex Karp, Shyam Sankar, and Joe Lonsdale, who are three of the prominent names, apart from Peter Thiel, three of the prominent names affiliated with or in leadership positions with Palantir. And they're basically like all of them I've followed for a long time. I've listened to them for years. And then all of a sudden Palantir became like a boogeyman buzzword with JD Vance, and everyone has an opinion about them now. So we're going to talk quite a bit about Palantir today. But before we get into all of that, I got to do this first. From P. Bandersky, a longtime listener of the show and a confirmed patriot. I have met him in person, pressed the flesh, and confirmed that he is in fact a patriot. He tagged me in this, and I don't know where this was, what he was doing, but it's beautiful. Thank you for producing this from the wild. Look at that. The Astrolabe. This is like some sort of a museum or something like that. All about the Astrolabe. The Astrolabe is an instrument of knowledge and discovery. Traveling with Columbus, Magellan, and Drake, it navigated the seas. In the hands of George Washington, the Astrolabe took measurements for surveying. Named by Ptolemy, it has been truly said that, quote, nearly every instrument used for observation in astronomy is part of an astrolabe. For more than 2,000 years, astrolabists, so there's a little mistake there. It's the technical term is astrolabians, but you know our scientists are going downhill these days, so I can't get too upset about it. For more than 2,000 years, astrolabians have used their instrument for finding time, navigating, surveying, accurately depicting the movements of the sun and stars, and for keeping alive through barbarous ages the fundamental truths of astronomy. The greatness of the astrolabe is due to the fact that it is the result of a combination of many discoveries and inventions. Bronowski called it the pocket watch and slide rule of the world. Robert Tanner in 1587 called it the traveler's joy and felicities. Chaucer wrote the first scientific text in English to instruct his son on the use of the astrolabe. This instrument truly can serve to teach and inspire one from the cradle to the grave. 4-inch 8-plate astrolabe, 23K plate pewter. Damn. The 8-plate astrolabe. The astrolabe with 6 latitudes, 1 universal horizon, and 1 terrestrial, allows one to navigate and survey at different latitudes anywhere in the northern hemisphere. The astrolabe and its 8 interchangeable plates come in a wooden box with velvet pillows and instruction books. This is Honorable Company of Metalsmiths in Berkeley, California. What is that? RenaissanceRings.com? I might have to take a look at what's on RenaissanceRings.com. And let me see if I can read this one here. It says, the astrolabe is an instrument of knowledge and discovery. Oh, it's the same one that I read before. Okay, yeah, it says the same thing as this one. Yeah, that's really freaking cool. Oh, the Mariner's astrolabe. See, it even says Mariners. It's literally, this is for me. Developed by the Portuguese in the late 15th century, the sea or Mariner's astrolabe was designed specifically for making altitude measurements at sea using the sun or a star. That's insane. Making altitude measurements at sea using the sun or a star. How do people possibly convince themselves that our ancestors were unsophisticated? Imagine giving this to the average person today and being like, hey, go figure out your altitude using the sun or the star out at sea. Imagine trying to teach someone this, the average person, how to use this. It would be an exercise in absolute futility. Let's see if there's anything else. It's kind of cut off here, so I can't see. The sea astrolabe became obsolete in the 17th century, being supplanted by the more accurate wood backstaff or Davis quadrant. Interesting. Yeah, only retards think their ancestors were retarded. And maybe if they think their ancestors were retarded, maybe their ancestors were retarded, because every age has their retards. Okay. Beautiful. Thank you, P. Bandersky. You got your own little segment of the Labe. Okay, you guys ready for a little nostalgia alert? You can already hear it, can't you? Look at the screen right now. You can hear it, can't you? I don't even have to hit play. You hear it just looking at it. Amy, can you imagine getting one of those for Eastwood? The Parent Annoyer 5000. Yeah. What did we put our parents through? Oh, childhood memories activated. So true, Kate. Man, it was insane. Yeah, the caption on here, it's been 20 years since you've heard this, but somehow you still knew which sound was coming next. That blew my mind. I didn't have one of these. I only ever played with them at like friends' houses or at other places where I went where they had them, or I saw them in a store. I never had one myself, and it blew my mind. I'd totally forgotten these things even existed, and it blew my mind sitting there listening to it and being like, my brain knows this. I know what's coming next. How is that still in there somewhere? Amy said, Eastwood's currently recreating the sound, so yes, I can't imagine it. Oh, what have I done to us? Oh, okay, so there was that MAGA rapper guy that I played the other day that Christy Yamaguchi Main had tweeted about, and in the replies to it was this guy. Found a guy who's trying to make it in hip hop. Hip hop laid me out flat for a minute. I haven't shared it just yet. Found a guy who's trying to make it in hip hop, but he can't stop dancing dick first in all his videos because he was a male stripper for 20 years that found Jesus. Look at this guy.
Just a boy from misery, and I've been in misery. Met a girl in Tennessee. She's the only 10 I see. That girl, she's the one for me. She the only 10 I see. Everything that you want, I'll be. Everything that you want, I'll be. Just a boy from misery, and I've been in misery. Walk into a bar, drink in my hand. I don't understand. My life is changing. Pop out, I'm driving, drinking and driving, and I keep crying. You don't know how I feel.
It's so bad. Man, what's his name? His name is Bart Wayne Bartist. Bart Wayne Bartist. This guy has the least, I don't know, is it like biggest balls or least self-awareness ever? It is, like, imagine doing that in public. Not just, this is like what you would do to someone if they lost. Like, did he lose his fantasy football league? This is the sort of thing that you would make your bros do as a punishment for like losing some kind of competition. And he's just voluntarily putting this stuff out there. The line, walk into a bar, drink in my hand. Y'all mind if a white boy speak a little LL? Bart is cool, Jay.
When I'm alone in my room, sometimes I stare at the wall, and in the back of my mind, I hear my conscience call, telling me I need a girl who's as sweet as a dove. For the first time in my life, I see I need love. There I was, giggling about the games that I have played with many hearts, and I'm not saying no names. Then a thought occurred, teardrops made my eyes burn, cause I said to myself, look what you've done to her. I can feel it inside, I can't explain how we feel. All I know is that I never dish another raw deal, playing make-believe, pretending that I'm true. Holding in my laugh as I say that I love you. Saying them all, kissing you on the ear. Whispering I love you when I always be here.
Oh my God. Slutty Milk says, under Donald Trump, we're developing new types of wiggers previously not thought possible. Oh my God.
In a world where it feels so wrong. Let's get driving home late from a bar last night. Had a date with a girl, but she wasn't my type. Thought I moved on, but it don't feel right. Speeding down 95, blowing through red lights. A lot of stuff changed, things been strange. Feel like life won't be the same. We used to dance slow to radio songs. Now we lost in a world where it feels so wrong. Let's get back to the time when everything felt alright. Let's get back to the time when we talked on the phone all night.
There's something that's, in this video? This one here. I think it's really obvious in this video. This is a type of grift that I've got to admit, I did not predict. See if you can pick out what I'm identifying here. See if you can see the AI present in this.
I thought I could be your man. I guess you don't understand. You don't understand. I guess you don't understand. It's 7:45 downtown. It's late and I was waiting for a girl like you to come home. So why don't you say what you need to? Cause I've been thinking of you. And on my mind,
he's lip syncing to AI.
I'm in a spaceship, riding downtown in a space whip. I've been down in a matrix. Baby, hold it down, you the greatest. You don't know how I feel. Gave you time.
Like, that's obviously not a person's voice.
This love is for real. This love is for real.
I have to admit, I did not predict that there were going to be people who would create AI music and then lip sync to it while dancing and trying to go viral on TikTok. Definitely did not predict that. But now that I've seen it, I'm like, this is so obvious. Of course someone was going to do this. Now someone who can't sing can have a musical career online. And I don't know how I feel about that. You know, we're going to talk about Palantir a lot today, talk about the good and the bad things about AI. I don't know if that's a net benefit. Oh, man, incredible wigger. All right, now speaking of AI slop always implied the existence of an AI gem. This is one of those that when I have like a dozen people tag me in or send me the same video, I'm like, okay, all right, we gotta play this one on the lab.
Everybody knows that the dice are loaded. Everybody rolls with their fingers crossed. Everybody knows the war is over. Everybody knows the good guys lost. Everybody knows the fight was fixed. The poor stay poor, the rich get rich. That's how it goes. Everybody knows. Everybody knows that the boat is leaking. Everybody knows the captain lied. Everybody got this broken feeling.
The hurricanes.
Like their father or their dog just died. Everybody talking to their pockets. Everybody wants a box of chocolates and a long stem rose. Everybody knows. Everybody knows that you love me, baby. Everybody knows that you really do. Everybody knows that you've been faithful, give or take a night or two. Everybody knows you've been discreet, but there were so many people you just had to meet without your clothes. And everybody knows. Everybody knows. Everybody knows. That's how it goes.
Patriot spotted. One of them.
Knows. Everybody knows. Everybody knows. That's how it goes. Everybody knows. Everybody knows that it's now or never. Everybody knows that it's me or you. And everybody knows that you live forever. Or when you're done a line or two. Everybody knows the deal is rotten. Old Black Joe still picking cotton for your ribbons and bows. And everybody knows. And everybody knows that the plague is coming. Everybody knows that it's moving fast. Everybody knows that the naked man and woman are just a shining artifact of the past. Everybody knows the scene is dead, but there's gonna be a meter on your bed that will disclose what everybody knows. And everybody knows that you're in trouble. Everybody knows what you've been through. From the bloody cross on top of Calvary to the beach in Malibu. Everybody knows it's coming apart. Take one last look at
They
this
can't help
sacred
themselves.
heart before it blows. And everybody knows. Everybody knows. Everybody knows. That's how it goes. Everybody knows. Everybody knows. Everybody knows. That's how it goes. Oh, everybody knows. Everybody knows. Everybody knows. That's how it goes.
How frickin' surreal. Does anybody know where that came from? Does anybody know who made that? Actually, I guess it's I Can't Even Production. Who is that? Who is I Can't Even Production? I feel like I've seen stuff from them before. Okay, it looks like all their stuff is AI filmmaking, satire. I want to remember what the other stuff. I feel like I've played something of theirs before, but I can't remember what it was now. Yeah, I'm very confused at who this propaganda is intended for. It's really like I can sort of develop a model for the mind of someone who like who is the what's more interesting to me is like who is it, what is the mind of the person that produced this? Because someone sees the world in such a way that inspires them to produce something trying to portray the world like that. So Trump is a stooge for like Emperor Kushner or something. It's Eyes Wide Shut. That he's all in league with all of them, and so there's a very strong libertarian streak. It's basically like it's like libertarians who took the JQ pill and then just swapped the state out for Jews. And it's like they found the big bad guy behind the state. No, you don't understand. It's not the state. It's the Jews. And if we just get rid of the Jews, then we'll be restored to glorious whatever they've put in the place of Ancapistan. So the state and Ancapistan replaced for Jews and I don't know. That's what you don't get a presentation of what would be good or what should replace it. It's just like a satire of like presenting a particular view of what is, just like describing what is. There's no ought contained within it. And honestly, it's like parts of it are pretty funny, like the Israeli thing with the hurricanes, like the state of Israel is manufacturing hurricanes. But it's like some of this is stuff that there's sort of an element of truth to it, and then people turn it into a meme. Like, oh yeah, Netanyahu controls the hurricane machine. But then there's a certain class of people that just believe that. They're like, oh, actually, that might be true. Yeah, I think it's Netanyahu. He's the one. He pushes the hurricane button. And then all the Americans die because he's a Jew and he hates Americans. It's like you got to be able to recognize the difference between the meme and the reality. I think, do I have something about? I don't think I included something about the Israelis. Israelis are crying a river about Trump totally bending Netanyahu over and humiliating their nation, and Trump is posting that they are prohibited from engaging in like Trump is directing their military. Israel is prohibited from XYZ military action. And Israeli press is absolutely chimping out about it. And it's like a mirror image of the, if you take the way that the JQ obsessives talk about Israel with respect to the American government, they're talking about America with respect to the Israeli government. So Trump to them is like what Netanyahu is to a JQ Spurg. The guy who's like the guy behind the scenes who's manipulating all the events and ushering in the apocalypse and destroying us as a people. Like, it's the same thing. Now, something a little lighthearted. Another Maverick Darby specialty here. JD as a Jedi.
It was a time of chaos, a time of retardation, and a time of heroism. I came looking for the one they said would bring balance and peace to the desert people. Two rogue religions were at war for thousands of years. However, everyone in the galaxy was super tired of it. Son of a fucking bitch, were we tired of hearing about it. Our story begins, as all great stories do, with a middle-aged, heavy-set, balding guy named J.D. Vance. Justice Delight Vance, I believe, is what J.D. stands for.
Justice Delight.
Armed with nothing other than his wits and a laser sword, he set his sights upon a seemingly impossible goal: apprehend or kill everyone who refused to end the war. Before he'd attempt to end the war, though, he knew it would better serve him to set his sights on cleaning up his home planet, which had been plagued with poison, corruption, and homosexual pornography. To keep his mind free, JD liked to race through the desert, occasionally running over illegal aliens with his land speeder. JD needed allies, so he went off to kick the crap out of some intergalactic filth and see if he could make a few friends along the way.
Look at all the Yodas!
In a canteen on the outskirts,
JD Knight!
JD caught the attention of legendary pilot and all-around great guy Alex Joneslow.
Alex Joneslow.
Wow, what a leader.
Guy Fieri was also there. Although he was mainly a flavor guy, Fieri also appreciated defeating evil and would make a great team member.
Those fight moves are next level gangster. Not unlike loaded cheese fries.
I'm going to tell my kids this is Star Wars. Now, I just played those two for you. Having seen both of them, which mind would you rather have around you? The mind that produced the first one or the mind that produced the second one? There's a little thing to have a think on. Look at this. Every Iranian embassy has its own personality and different posting patterns now. The embassy of Sweden is posting woke pronouns shit, while the South African embassy is praising Hitler. Here's the South African Iranian embassy. It says, of course, this comparison is an insult to Hitler. So they're like, the South African Iranian embassy is like, bring back Hitler. Get rid of Netanyahu and bring back Hitler. Meanwhile, this is what the Iranian embassy in Sweden is doing. In case you had any questions about what the base ideology that is motivating the current Iranian resistance is.
Did you know Persian is a gender-neutral language? Gender-neutral language recently took hold in English, but Persians have always spoken this way. In place of he or she, there's a gender-neutral pronoun u. When speaking Persian, every third person is they, them. Persians say bashariyat, meaning humankind, instead of mankind. Instead of husband or wife, Persians say hamsar. Hamsar means equal head or equal rank. On that note, Iranian women don't take their husband's last name. Zan, the Persian word for woman, is not an extension of the word man. Interestingly, Zan is related to the English word queen. When speaking of men and women, we mention women first. Instead of husband and wife, we say zan o shohar, or wife and husband. Instead of men and women, we say zan o mard, or women and men. Instead of brothers and sisters, we say khahar o barodar, or sisters and brothers. Persian is a beautiful language. Did you know Persian is a gender?
This is the Iranian propaganda. Who's motivating this propaganda? What's the message behind this? The message behind this is, look at how cultured and sophisticated and progressive Iran is. You need to oppose Donald Trump because Iran is actually a sophisticated, first world, advanced, progressive, modern, liberal democracy. Now, if you gave me the choice between living in Iran and living in the UK, I would probably pick Iran. Like, just all other things being equal, just take snapshot in time, how it is right now. I'd rather live in Iran that's being fucking bombed than live in the UK. But the propaganda about Iran and Iran itself are not the same thing at all. There are a lot of different Iranian interests, quote unquote, Iranian interests, but the majority of what we see as representing itself as Iranian interests is the exact same regime that I don't know, that got Joe Biden elected. It's the same people. That's why they're putting out propaganda like this. Colin Ross says, "Did you know that rooftop is gender neutral?" Yeah, I was gonna be rude and say, "How do you say fuck goat in Persian?" Thank you for renewing your subscription, Colin Ross and T-Con. Okay, what was the next thing I had here? Oh yeah, so where my Luangooners at? Living Dead says that clip makes me think we should actually restart the war. Yeah, so true. Where my Luangooners at? Luango's in the chat. There we go. The end of oil volatility as a weapon. Written by our beloved cult leader. He says this is the only chart that matters right now, not borrowing costs. And he tags Luke Groman. His feud with Luke Groman is very entertaining right now. This is the weekly chart of Brent crude. Now, if you are a member of Tom's group, then he does his twice weekly market reports, and you should be very, very familiar with this chart by now. This is the Brent crude, the oil futures, a financial oil contract. And this is over the past, what is this? This is a weekly chart. So you can see how it's been all the way down here, but it's super, super volatile. Like, oil, as such a foundational commodity, should have the most boring chart in the world. But look at it just ping-ponging all over the place, up and down and all. Like, on a weekly scale, like this, it might be this for a daily scale or an hourly scale or something like that. But this in a weekly scale is insane. It makes it incredibly hard to plan investments or to think of how much goes into starting a new oil drilling operation or getting involved building a new pipeline or anything associated with that when prices are all over the place. So this, obviously, right here is the moment that the Iranian engagement began, let's say. And pew! But now it has turned over completely. He says, I've been telling my patrons for 3 weeks in the market reports that the Brent crude chart has all the earmarks of a market being manipulated up to support a narrative. In other words, people are trying to drive the market up to inflict the downstream effects of an elevated oil market price for a particular reason. That narrative is that Donald Trump is a madman who broke the world and is losing in Iran. Look at the chart carefully. You see big gaps between weekly closes and opens. Also, note the tails to the downside versus the wicks to the upside. The tails are much longer than the wicks, telltale signs of a market that has topped, but someone is trying to keep reflating it. This market has fully topped, but there's someone that keeps trying to push it up. They're trying to push it up and trying to push it up, but there are massive pressures pushing it back down again. So why? Many reasons, from speculations, positions, narrative control, etc. Markets are the sum total of all of these players. But the reality is that you can only manipulate a market over a short period of time. Hat tip to Martin Armstrong. Unless you control the total pricing system for that market, i.e. central banks and currencies, and why the gold and silver markets have been manipulated for years. Oil is a market of immense volatility with 5-year moving average of its range of a price topping 7% on a weekly basis, which is in Bitcoin territory. So it's the range relative to the price moves over 7% on a weekly basis. So it would be, you would much rather have as close to zero as possible. I know Tom has said, and every time he's ranted about this, he's said 2.5%, 3% would be ideal. But 7% for oil is in the range of one of the most volatile assets known to man. It should be the most boring market on the planet since everyone depends on it, but it isn't. It trades like a penny stock on a double espresso. Hat tip to Dennis Miller. Just Tom constantly demonstrating his Gen X credentials. Someone profits from that volatility. Someone works with others to create that volatility. All roads don't lead to Des Moines, FYI. Oil volatility is the enemy of certainty. It retards investment in some cases and redirects it to other less viable investments in others. CF wind, solar, LED lights, and all of this watermelon, green on the outside, commie red on the inside nonsense. If we want a world of predictability, which is the essential purpose of human action, hat tip to Mises, something most Misesians have forgotten, then we have to accept that sometimes we have to defend our right to a predictable future. And no amount of asking for it nicely is going to get us there. We were never voting our way out of this. That's why I've been in full-throated favor of this conflict with Iran. It's why I allowed myself to see the world differently than I did previously. The Federal Reserve is just a tool. It can and has been a tool for evil, but it can also be a tool for good, like all technology. This is why SOFR was the beginning of this war, and why this morning's announcement by Iran is the end of the current battle in it. It should still be deprecated in importance, removed from duties it was never designed nor been allowed to perform. The same can be said for the US military, which has been a tool used to enforce the tyranny of evil men, hat tip Roger Avery and Quentin Tarantino from Pulp Fiction, on Wall Street, on Bay Street, K Street, and 10 Downing Street. But, like the Fed, it can be used judiciously to serve humanity with the right set of circumstances and the right mission. It did so. We've been blackmailed by evil people for generations to accept this lack of investment certainty, to indulge our cynicism or lack of faith in humanity. We chuckled and collapsitarian for too many years. And I, frankly, just got sick of it. It's pathetic and evil, and we shouldn't tolerate it in them or ourselves for another God's damned minute. Period. It's anathema to human life, common decency, and civilization itself. This is the truth. And it all goes back to the intersection of selling narrative while hitting desperate people where they live and breathe, in their pocketbooks. In the end, oil prices want to fall because the fundamentals are bearish. Hat tip to Doomberg. There is no peak oil. There is no Green New Deal. There is only Zool. Okay, maybe not Zool. Grin. I don't understand this reference. Probably has to do with a board game or a video game or something, I would imagine. This chart is your literal snapshot of a pricing control system being destroyed in real time by one guy, Donald J. Trump. Have you heard of him? With support from his Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and his merry band of warfighters, and his Secretary of State Marco Rubio. He has both exposed and stolen London's control over oil flows to support its centuries-old evil by the studious application of gold, dollars, goats, American industrial might, and guns. Stew all you want, haters, but he's done it. The Hormuz blackmail is done. Trump has his hand on the global oil spigot now, and he can turn the volatility up or down. The U.S. is the global price setter now, like it or not. Why? Because fuck you. That's why. Peak Tom. We love our cranky old Italian, don't we, boys? When you understand what this chart means, what the downstream effects of this are, you realize that this war being conducted with the I don't know, would you say like the efficiency that it has been so far is it really, I don't know, it means something. I can understand if you didn't have all of this backdrop to what's been happening over the last several years, that Tom has done a very good job of laying out, then like the financial engineering that has been the backbone of the very regime that has imported millions of people into the country, that has strangled the life out of American industry, that has tried to trans all of our kids, that has done drag queen story hours. That regime has been financed by this. And so in going to war with the Brent crude contract via the Strait of Hormuz, Donald Trump is hitting that regime directly in its heart, right in its financial heart. It's not just the Brent crude contract. Note that the Brent crude contract has come only after the gold and silver markets both did something similar. We have been controlled by foreign powers, by foreign interests. If you want those foreign interests disentangled from America, you have to meet them where they are. Foreign policy is domestic policy. Yes, it's very sad that there were 13 American service members who died because of this. But when you engage in military action, people die. And Trump said from the get-go that people are going to die. Given the scale of the transformative effect of success in this military engagement, like, let me back up. Let me try to reframe this. Say this in another way. Go back 200 years and imagine that there's like a military engagement. You have an army of 10,000 that meets on the battlefield against another army of 10,000. And one army takes 50% casualties. The other army takes 20% casualties. And the army that takes the 20% casualties wins a great victory and conquers some new territory or whatever the purpose was of fighting that war. You would say, yes, it was very sad that those people died, but the fact that they accomplished it at only 20% casualties compared to the casualties they inflicted on their enemies makes it a great military victory. The same thing is true here. Having a great military victory with the downstream effects of what that military victory means has to color or inform your evaluation of the casualties that were sustained. And given the potential like total globe reordering effects of successfully prosecuting this war in Iran and removing Iran as a source of constant global instability, given the potential downstream effects of that, you could increase the casualties thus far by several orders of magnitude. And it would still be well within the realm of what would be considered a military success. And that's a hard thing to say. That's a hard thing to think about. But militaries are comprised of people who could potentially die while they're engaged in military activities. More members of the military die of natural causes or die of like accidents every year. That's not to say those lives are irrelevant. It's that those lives are part of the cost that is paid. But when you consider what's gained, it's a relatively low cost compared to what it could have been. How many lives have been lost because of the current status quo? When you run down through the downstream effects of the everything that this regime has inflicted, the post-war regime has inflicted on the world. Deaths of despair, suicide, accidents from bad infrastructure, drug deaths. The casualty list of the regime that has used Iran as a node for spreading global chaos is vastly, vastly longer than 13. And if all it took was 13 lives to erase that other casualty list, that is precisely what a military is for. And that's an unpopular thing to say, because in America, we've gotten used to this idea that like the American military has to be absolutely perfect in every single thing they do, and they can never lose a single person. You can't conduct a military that way. This is why the military has been so bogged down, and why there's been so many humiliating, like the withdrawal from Afghanistan and the stain upon the legacy of the U.S. military from the way that the Middle East wars were prosecuted and all the nation building and everything that went into it. All of that credibility and reputation staining from that. I don't remember where I was going with that. That was all part of that status quo. That status quo is being overturned. Let's see. Yeah, the chat keeps getting stuck. Every time I see it, I try to, I just got to go refresh it again. Kate says, all the influence of the evil WEF financiers can't be fought by simple domestic policy. You have to hurt them where they get the dollars to push that on us via their foreign proxy states. Iran is just one of those many proxy states, right? Living Dead says, imagine a world where the country wasn't sold out and co-opted in a way that required an engagement in 2026 where 13 American soldiers died. These casualties are the responsibility of much prior structures doing very bad things. Yes. Yes. Oh, the thing I was going to say is that people think that the U.S. military has to be, like, cannot lose a single person. This is the nanny state bureaucracy that was just suffocating the effectiveness of the military. Yeah, Ms. Kingbolt says, do you know how many military-age men died in World War II? That's considered a major success. Right. Think of that contrast. The military has to be able to lose people in order for the military to actually function. But we've gotten, like, people barely bat an eye at all of the veterans or even active duty military people who take the Canadian healthcare route. They don't even pay attention to that at all. But then 13 lives lost in the pursuit of an extremely valid military aim is now suddenly the end of the world. We have a very distorted relationship with death. The way I try to look at things is I try to go like 300 years in the future and then look back at this, at current events, with the perspective of a historian. Because if you were reading a story, reading some sort of like historical like biography or something, and someone was to talk about some military exploit where they lost 13 people, you wouldn't even bat an eye. It would just, you don't have this like deep personal intimate attachment with it. Those were still 13 lives. It was terrible that those 13 lives were lost. But this is part of life in this world. And if you're going to say that those 13 lives were wasted or something like that, or those 13 lives should never have been lost, now you're arguing against the existence of a military or military conquest. Now you're effectively just cornering yourself into pacifism. And I can just reject pacifism outright. Pacifism is Christian heresy. So I just reject it. Nope. A nation will have an army. That army has a role. And sometimes the exercise of that role will lead to the deaths of members of the military. That's what they're there for. Now here's an article from Zero Hedge talking about the Iranian situation. From leverage to liability. The Hormuz Strait is now Iran's biggest weakness. This is from Daniel Lacal. I don't know who this is, but I thought it was an interesting article. For half a century, the Strait of Hormuz was Iran's weapon. Today, it is its noose. The mathematics of energy have flipped, and with them, the balance of coercive power in the Persian Gulf. Iran's implicit deterrent was geographic, spanning from the tanker wars of the 1980s to the sanctioned standoffs of the 2010s. Almost 20% of global seaborne oil and a similar share of liquefied natural gas passes through the strait. The formula was simple. Any military confrontation that threatened the Tehran regime risked a closure that would halt trade supplies, spike crude prices, bleed Western consumers, and, above all, inflict pain on the United States, who was the world's largest oil importer. The Strait served as Tehran's insurance policy and its most powerful bargaining tool. The threat was predicated on the regime's belief that it could block everyone except its exports. The Iranian regime revealed its biggest weakness by constantly threatening to damage the global economy through a shutdown of the Strait. In reality, a total shutdown has the most severe impact on Iran. So this has been the thing that they've used, and you should know at this point, like, it's not Iran per se. Yes, there are people within the Iranian leadership class who have been strongly enriched off of all of this, but this was a great benefit to other, let's say, other imperial interests that had a strong vested interest in retaining access to the military might of the United States while ensuring that the United States had a fatal vulnerability, a way that you constantly had their balls in a vice and you could clamp down anytime you needed to. That was the purpose of the Strait of Hormuz. But flipping the United States into a net exporter, and one of the largest oil producers in the world, and then having a man named a distinguished gentleman named Donald John Trump, having him, the absolute madman negotiator, take over, has flipped that. Almost 90% of Iran's crude exports and about 80% of its total exports depend on the transit through Hormuz. Around 25% of Iranian GDP and 60% of government revenues depend completely on having the Strait open. So they had this as like their ultimate trump card, but once they've played it, suddenly it's kind of like having compromat on someone, like having blackmail on someone. The blackmail is only useful while nobody knows about it. Once it becomes public, you can't use it anymore. You can't use it as leverage. So once they played that card, they could no longer use it. So you have to ride out the difficulty that comes from them playing the card, which was the purpose of them retaining that, was so that they could inflict this on everyone else to get their way. You ride out the bumpy time, and then they don't have that leverage any longer. And that actually becomes fatal to them. Before the war, Iran was exporting roughly 1.7 million barrels per day, receiving around $160 million in daily revenue from exports via the Strait. Thus, Trump's full closure of the Strait costs Tehran hundreds of millions of dollars a day in losses, not accounting for the additional fiscal and currency consequences in a country already facing an economic disaster with 40 to 50% inflation. The complete dependence on the Strait of Hormuz also adds to another weakness. 95% of Iranian crude at sea is sold to a single buyer, China. Tehran is not selling into a diversified and open market. Its exports are sold to a monopsony that demands large discounts between $10 and $11 per barrel. A monopsony being, monopoly would be a single provider. A monopsony is a single purchaser. These weaknesses were visible long before the war. Capital flight reached $15 billion in the first half of 2025 alone. The rial collapsed against the dollar, and the government's budget, which allocates 51% of oil revenues to the IRGC, became even more dependent on a single export route it could not afford to close. When the war began, Iranian crude shipments collapsed by 94%. Then the United States' decision to block all Iran export vessels showed that Iran's choke point had become self-choking. In the past 30 days, 80% of the essential volumes that moved through the Strait have been rerouted or offset by other oil producers, including U.S. record exports. The world is very different from what the Iran regime thought. In 2025, U.S. crude oil production hit a new annual record of 13.6 million barrels per day, making the United States the world's largest producer, but also the biggest exporter. The United States shipped 5.2 million barrels per day of crude and 7.2 million barrels per day of petroleum products in March of 2026, both global records. For the first time, America exported more petroleum than it imported by a net margin of almost 2.8 million barrels per day, according to the EIA. Total U.S. liquids production now exceeds that of Saudi Arabia and Russia combined. On the natural gas side, U.S. LNG exports reached well over 15 billion cubic feet per day, surpassing Qatar and Australia to make the United States the world's largest liquefied natural gas exporter. while U.S. dry gas production exceeds the combined output of Russia, Iran, and China. Furthermore, the United States is also the world's largest producer of nuclear electricity, at roughly 30% of global generation, and a global leader in renewable energy. When President Trump could say on April 2026 that the United States was, quote, clearing the strait as a favor to countries around the world, including China, Japan, Korea, and Germany, the framing was an accurate description of who needs Hormuz open and who does not. Only 4% of the traffic through the strait goes to the United States, according to SP Global. According to the International Energy Agency, throughput at Hormuz collapsed from its long-run average of about 20 million barrels per day to 3.8 million since the beginning of the war through the second week in April. Daily ship transits fell roughly 95%. The Tehran regime, in a gesture more theatrical than realistic, attempted to levy a $2 million toll on each vessel crossing the strait without understanding that the move showed desperation instead of leverage. The U.S. response has been the most important measure deployed against Iran in 2 decades of standoffs. Operation Economic Fury established a full naval blockade of Iranian ports. Iranian naval losses in the first 38 days of combat exceeded 150 vessels. The ceasefire framework under negotiation requires Iran to reopen Hormuz, but the U.S. maintains control. Thus, negotiations revolve around Iranian dismantlement, not American concessions. The lesson is not just that Iran miscalculated, but that it massively underestimated its obvious weaknesses. The United States is not a hostage of the Gulf. It is the guarantee of its safe sea lanes. Europe is tied to U.S. LNG while keeping a substantial Russian dependence, which complicates its energy security and makes it vulnerable to fluctuations in supply and price from both sources. Asia's largest economies, particularly China, are suffering the marginal cost of a Hormuz disruption, which has led to increased energy prices and supply chain uncertainties that further exacerbate their economic challenges. Iran's economic nightmare has only started. 3 important facts must be considered. First, the traditional Hormuz risk premium in Brent, which refers to the additional cost added to oil prices due to geopolitical tensions in the Strait of Hormuz. This is kind of a long sentence, so let me parse it out here. So, there is the traditional Hormuz risk premium in the Brent contract. So, the Brent contract has additional cost added to the oil prices related to the Strait of Hormuz. When the Strait of Hormuz starts acting up, that risk premium goes up. So, the traditional Hormuz risk premium in Brent is structurally smaller than in the 2010s because U.S. supply can absorb shocks that previously had no substitute. So, if the United States was not a net exporter right now with more supply than increasing supply, more supply than they need plus increasing supply, because of that, like if that was not the case, they would not be able to prosecute the war against Iran the way they are. The fact that they are means that the United States actually absorbs that additional demand. So the United States actually gets wealthier off of it. The Brent price is lower in real and nominal terms than in the 2008, 2018, or 2022 peaks. So Americans have dealt with oil prices higher than this. I mean, gas prices are high where we are right now, but they're like $3.50. And they've gone up to $4. They've tailed back down again. They've dropped down to like $3.30. Now they're like $3.50. So they're high. It's not nice having them as high as they are. But it's not going to last. Second, the strength of American energy, including economics, export infrastructure, and LNG capacity, has become a key global geopolitical variable, influencing global energy prices and the strategic decisions of other nations. Third, Iran's economy has not only suffered damage, it has also been demolished, and its extremely weak fiscal position indicates that it cannot sustain the threat posture in Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz remains the world's most important choke point. However, a choke point hurts whoever depends on it most, and Iran relies on it completely. The United States does not. The geopolitical advantage that Tehran once held has now become its greatest weakness, likely leading to the disappearance of the regime's effective bargaining power. Okay. Let me, Thank you, Emperor Atreides, for the kicks. Please do tip your streamer. Tips.kingpill.com. I guess I actually didn't pin it in the chat here. So I'll do that real quick. Mrs. Kingpilled will add you to the nice list. So what are you talking about here in the chat? Spear B says the Epstein files coming out when it did makes the people who are wrapped up in it free to do as they want or align with whoever they want now. That's an interesting thought. Yeah. And there's definitely people who have taken, like Peter Mandelson and Larry Summers. There's definitely been people who have taken it on the chin and had to step down from important positions because of it. I'll bet you there will still be more. Matt, Tom Luongo, and No Agenda. That is high praise, Whit. That's good company. Yeah, Judge Knapp. Judge Knapp is in. I haven't listened to him in so long now. I can't even listen to him. Living Dead says, I think the runway on the Doomer Troon slop that is filling podcasts up is actually going to run out fairly quick. The listener base just won't demoralize eternally. It's self-defeating on shorter time horizon than those guys think. That's a good point, yeah. Like, eventually people just get so demoralized that they can't even check in anymore. They don't even tune in. Which, like, if you're doing that to people, if you're demoralizing people like that, man, I will say a prayer for your soul. Having that going out and relentlessly depressing people, getting people to buy into you and trust you and listen to you, make you a regular part of their day, and then choosing to perpetually demoralize them and bum them out and outrage them and cultivate resentment in them, it is criminal. T-Con says it's literally the meme with the dude standing in the corner and everyone's dancing. They don't know about the Jews. Yeah. Okay, so speaking of the Hormuz risk premium, this is a good point from Scott Bessent's most recent victim, Kevin Hassett.
We've had 2 earnings seasons in a row where basically everything's surprising on the upside. That's happening because the golden age that President Trump promised is starting to be very visible in the profit data, but also more importantly in the wage data. If you're a person who has a job where you're making tips, or you're making overtime, or you're a retiree who thought that Social Security wasn't what you expected and you need to make some more money, all of you got huge tax breaks in the $4,000 to $7,000 range because of the big, beautiful bill. And so I think that with strong domestic economy, then the question is there something about the foreign relations that could upset that? And first, the U.S. economy is the engine of global growth. And so a strong U.S. economy is a super positive, despite what's going on in the Gulf. But also, once this is resolved, think about how much energy production in the Gulf area has been depressed over time because of the huge risk premium associated with Iranian misbehavior. And so once this thing is done, think about the explosion in new energy production that can happen in the Middle East, driving prices way, way down over time, including in the U.S. The final thing I could say.
Think about that there. Like this perhaps would be the most concise way to deliver the message of why now, why do this, why Iran, why go after them like this, why do this whole thing? Because of that. Who do you think would want to maintain this crisis node to add this risk premium to a financial contract? Who does that benefit? And correspondingly, who does that not benefit? How much inflated have global energy prices been? And you're like, if global energy prices are inflated, everything downstream, everything, the entire, like, there's nothing that is more comprehensively impactful to the cost of things than the cost of energy. So having this Strait of Hormuz, Iranian regime risk premium tacked on top of this financial contract that everyone else grounds to, then, like, how much of a benefit could there be to remove that risk premium? To take it away? And actually allow the Gulf to just develop freely.
The white man is back, baby! The white
Donkey
man is
bite.
back!
Watching the video of Leonard Cohen's song took me back to time when I lived with Leonard at his Ensenada, New Mexico in the late 90s. Very nice man.
Hold on a second. Watching that video of Leonard Cohen's song took me back to the time when I lived with Leonard at a Zen center in New Mexico in the late 90s. That sounds like a novel. That sounds like a book that needs to be written. Like a Hunter S. Thompson book or something like that. Are you memeing or is that real? That's incredible. Thank you, Donkey Bite.
Patriot.
Roy's Redemption, you are a patriot. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you. Let's finish this Kevin Hassett video, and then I believe what's the next thing? Let's finish this.
Is that if you look at the ship traffic data, it's kind of like every empty vessel on Earth is headed towards the U.S. to fill up with oil right now. So the U.S. is the biggest oil producer on Earth, and the capacity that we have to meet the demand of people who are stuck in that picture that you're showing, I think is a positive surprise for markets.
Tosh Got a Fool says hello, and of course a wonderful nigger faggot to everyone. He says that over on Rumble. A wonderful nigger faggot to you. Patriot, regular listener. Now, this video, Randy Fine. Somehow, I've wound up in a war. If you would have told me a few years ago that I would be at a place where I would have more respect for fucking Randy Fine than Thomas Massey, I would not have believed you. I would have been horrified at such a notion. It is deeply and personally hurtful to me to see the way that Thomas Massey has utterly beclowned himself. This is, fat Jewish-based Thomas Massey. Listen to this.
I did not come here to protect Haitians. I came to protect for the good of our country. And the only discharge petition I will support is the one that discharges all of these people back to Haiti.
Hell yes. Bumbadum said, Randy hired some schizo zoomer just waiting to sneak a Sonnenrad in there when the time is right. That was a video tweeted out by Congressman Randy Fine. I did not come to a Congress to import infinity third worlders. I came to save America. We've got congressmen, we've got turbo-Zionist congressmen saying, I did not come to Congress to import infinity third worlders. You know what? If I'm going to have to deal with Zionists, I want the Zionists who say, I'm not going to import infinity third worlders, get the Haitians out of my country. I would prefer to not deal with Zionists at all. But I know that time is not here yet. So for the time being, I would rather have a Zionist who wants to import infinity third worlders than than Thomas Massey. Than a guy who will run cover for the importation of infinity third worlders and relentlessly spurg out about Jews. I would much rather just have Randy Fine. Give me the guy who gets all the third worlders out of my country, and whatever happens in Israel can happen in Israel. Let's start with maintaining our borders. Let's get that out of the way, and then we can deal with the Israel problem. Because, frankly, the Israel problem is dealing with itself. Give me Seinfeld over Al Jazeera any day. Yes, well said, T-Con. Well said. Living Dead says, a true testament to how prolonged exposure to libertarianism will make you completely retarded. No kidding. No kidding. Libertarianism plus JQ awareness is the worst possible combination. It just turns him into a communist. Let's talk about Palantir. We're making everyone mad today. Paulos at MythPilot says, I really don't give a shit about Palantir. I think we need 1,000 times more Palantir. I want Palantir so deep in every government database, cell phone network, and financial system that an illegal can't buy a stick of gum in Biloxi without alerting every cop and ICE agent for 100 miles. I want Palantir in license plate readers. I want Palantir hooked up to facial recognition cameras. I want so much Palantir that you can walk into a plane without showing ID because Palantir knows who you are and where you're going before you even leave the house. I want it to be functionally illegal for felons and parolees to enter geofenced areas, including downtowns, shopping malls, beaches, and national parks. Thanks to Palantir. I want to see libertarians and the EFF scream bloody murder while we obsolete crime. With Palantir. This is what I'm talking about. Yes, give me the surveillance state that obsoletes crime. There's going to be a surveillance state. There already is a surveillance state. Give me a surveillance state that obsoletes crime. All we're going to argue about is who's going to control the surveillance state and what the surveillance state is going to do. If you're arguing against the surveillance state, you are behind the times. You are the peanut gallery. The only question is, who is going to control the surveillance state and what is the surveillance state going to do? Is the surveillance state going to make everything more convenient and obsolete crime? Yes. That's the surveillance state that I want. Yes, let him know. Nigga, you're using electronics. You think they ain't spying on you? We already are being spied on. There already is a surveillance state. Give me a surveillance state that makes my life better. So here's Palantir. A few days ago, they tweeted this out. Because we get asked a lot, the Technological Republic in brief. The Technological Republic is a book written by Alex Karp. You guys are about to get a... If you guys don't like Alex Karp, then you're probably going to want to just tune out now, and we'll catch you on the next one, because you're about to get a lot of Alex Karp. So this is his book, The Technological Republic, in brief. 1. Silicon Valley owes a moral debt to the country that made its rise possible. The engineering elite of Silicon Valley has an affirmative obligation to participate in the defense of the nation. The engineering elite of Silicon Valley owe a moral debt to the country, and they have an affirmative obligation to participate in the defense of the country. Number 2, we must rebel against the tyranny of the apps. Is the iPhone our greatest creative, if not crowning achievement as a civilization? The object has changed our lives, but it may also now be limiting and constraining our sense of the possible. Number 3, free email is not enough. The decadence of a culture or civilization, and indeed its ruling class, will be forgiven only if that culture is capable of delivering economic growth and security for the public. In other words, we can be wealthy. It's not a bad thing to be wealthy. It's not even a bad thing for the ruling class to be wealthy, as long as the wealthy ruling class recognizes their affirmative obligation to deliver economic growth and security for the public. Talking about like having like an aristocracy that has a moral obligation to uphold the mores of the civilization and protect the lower classes, advocate for their interests, sacrifice for them. Very interesting. Number 4, the limits of soft power, of soaring rhetoric alone, have been exposed. The ability of free and democratic societies to prevail requires something more than moral appeal. It requires hard power, and hard power in this century will be built on software. This is distinctly anti-globalist. You should be able to recognize that. Very anti-globalist. If we want to continue having free and democratic societies, and you can see this as basically a euphemism for prosperous and for prosperous societies where the government has an obligation to protect the rights of the people. That's what free and democratic means. The ability of free and democratic societies to prevail requires hard power. You need to actually be able to exert force. You can't just appeal to everyone to just be nice and play fair. No, you're going to have to actually enforce your will upon your enemies. And also, hard power in this century will be built on software. Yeah, Enlightenment BTFO'd. Very true, Wit. Number 5, the question is not whether AI weapons will be built. This is incredibly important. The question is not whether AI weapons will be built. It is who will build them and for what purpose? Our adversaries will not pause to indulge in theatrical debates about the merits of developing technologies with critical military and national security applications. They will proceed. This is the same this is the reason you have a military in the first place. Because arms races will proceed whether you're involved in them or not. Opting out of the arms race is just a way of submitting to the winner of the arms race. Number 6, national service. This is one of the most controversial ones that everyone's talking about in here. Number 6, national service should be a universal duty. We should, as a society, seriously consider moving away from an all-volunteer force and only fight the next war if everyone shares in the risk and the cost. What's this describing? They're describing a militarized society. A militarized society built around corporate entities that have an affirmative obligation to the preservation of the security and prosperity of the society. Yeah, service guarantees citizenship. I think that something like this is basically inevitable. We've already got the backbone of it, and I think it's necessary. I think this is necessary. This doesn't necessarily mean military service. I think there's still a place for a volunteer force. It doesn't necessarily mean military service. It means national service. So that could be logistics. It could be the public utilities, cleaning up national parks. It could be anything like that. Yeah, Slutty Milk. Sounds like we're all bundled together, like that one Italian word. Yeah, I can't think of it. It's just, I think it starts with an F, maybe. Like,
What a fag.
Faggot?
Yeah.
I just did.
But would you
Faggot.
Okay.
Number 7. If a U.S. Marine asks for a better rifle, we should build it. And the same goes for software. We should, as a country, be capable of continuing a debate about the appropriateness of military action abroad while remaining unflinching in our commitment to those we have asked to step into harm's way. You know, this is kind of like you can debate about whether or not the Iran war should happen, but once the Iran war is happening, you cannot be engaged in the practice of spreading foreign propaganda and undermining the war effort and calling into question the mental acuity of the commander-in-chief. If a U.S. Marine asks for a better rifle, we should build it. And the same goes for software. In other words, this kind of ties into number 5. The question is not whether AI weapons will be built, it's who will build them and for what purpose. So if the military, Silicon Valley obviously is generally populated, and that's who he's primarily writing to, that's his culture. They're overwhelmingly populated with libs who just reflexively are opposed to anything military. They're managerialists through and through who want to strangle the life out of the military with process. But if the military needs better military equipment, particularly where software is concerned, then those of us who specialize in the creation and maintenance of software need to be proactively supporting the military. Number 8, public servants need not be our priests. Any business that compensated its employees in the way that the federal government compensates public servants would struggle to survive. Number 9, we should show far more grace toward those who have subjected themselves to public life. The eradication of any space for forgiveness, a jettisoning of any tolerance for the complexities and contradictions of the human psyche, may leave us with a cast of characters at the helm we will grow to regret. You got the tech bros saying that we need to restore a culture of grace and forgiveness. Number 10, and you notice that the argument made for it here is a pragmatic one. If we eradicate space for forgiveness, cancel culture, whatever, then ultimately we're going to wind up with terrible leadership. So they're making like a utilitarian case for extending grace to people in the public eye. Number 10, the psychologization of modern politics is leading us astray. Those who look to the political arena to nourish their soul and sense of self, who rely too heavily on their internal life finding expression in people they may never meet, will be left disappointed. This is extraordinarily based. Extraordinarily based. Those who look to the political arena to nourish their soul and sense of self, who rely too heavily on their internal life finding expression in people they may never meet, will be left disappointed. This is like, you could see a picture here of what their picture of the government ought to be. They need to be well-compensated professionals who aren't held on some sort of extreme moral platform, who also have the space to get things wrong without it being this super high stakes, like end of the world. And then people, this like parasocial relationship with politics is the hyper politicization of everything is incredibly toxic. Which is this is like the beta testing for restricting the franchise. You need people to be less invested in politics, just generally speaking. Number 11, our society has grown too eager to hasten and is often gleeful at the demise of its enemies. The vanquishing of an opponent is a moment to pause, not rejoice. Again, just extraordinarily based. Vanquishing of an opponent is a moment to pause, not rejoice. This is a distinctly Christian truth. Also, yeah, Mello, that's not a very Jewish statement. This is, you might even see this as a massive subtweet of the entire nation of Israel. Number 12, the atomic age is ending. One age of deterrence, the atomic age, is ending, and a new era of deterrence built on AI is set to begin. Number 13, no other country in the history of the world has advanced progressive values more than this one. The United States is far from perfect, but it is easy to forget how much more opportunity exists in this country for those who are not hereditary elites than in any other nation on the planet. Okay, so we got a little. I mean, the dude is a Jewish. I think he's like Jewish African Marxist. That's like his background. I can't remember if I had something about this later on in the show with some of these clips, but for those who don't know or don't remember, Alex Karp's doctoral advisor in Germany was none other than Habermas. He studied directly under Jürgen Habermas. Now, they kind of had a little bit of a falling out. He ended up finishing up with someone else. But he is like straight from the Frankfurt School. But he's a fascinating character. Well, I've got a bunch of videos, so we'll get into it. Number 14, American power has made possible an extraordinarily long peace. Too many have forgotten, or perhaps take for granted, that nearly a century of some version of peace has prevailed in the world without a great power military conflict. At least 3 generations, billions of people and their children and now grandchildren have never known a world war. Little pro-American propaganda. Now this one is fascinating. Number 15, the post-war neutering of Germany and Japan must be undone. The defanging of Germany was an overcorrection for which Europe is now paying a heavy price. A similar and highly theatrical commitment to Japanese pacifism will, if maintained, also threaten to shift the balance of power in Asia. Again, you've got the Jewish African Marxist writing about how, number one, what was this up here? The vanquishing of an opponent is a moment to pause, not rejoice. And the defanging of Germany was an overcorrection. This is the tool of the Antichrist. This is Bibi Netanyahu's personal military apparatus. These are the ideas that they want to convey to you. Number 16, we should applaud those who attempt to build where the market has failed to act. The culture almost snickers at Musk's interest in grand narrative, as if billionaires ought to simply stay in their lane of enriching themselves. Any curiosity or genuine interest in the value of what he has created is essentially dismissed, or perhaps lurks from beneath a thinly veiled scorn. Number 17, Silicon Valley must play a role in addressing violent crime. Many politicians across the United States have essentially shrugged when it comes to violent crime, abandoning any serious efforts to address the problem or take on any risk with their constituencies or donors in coming up with solutions and experiments in what should be a desperate bid to save lives. You think that the massive data collection entity, the massive data collection company, you think they don't know what addressing violent crime means? We got like 5 more. Are there any other companies in the world right now? Any other institutions, period? Governments, NGOs, normal corporations, any that are talking in these terms? Can you point me to any? And I'm supposed to hate them? Number 18, the ruthless exposure of the private lives of public figures drives far too much talent away from government service. The public arena and the shallow and petty assaults against those who dare to do something other than enrich themselves has become so unforgiving that the Republic is left with a significant roster of ineffectual, empty vessels whose ambition one would forgive if there were any genuine belief structure lurking within. Now, I'm sure that most people are going to look at this as being like running cover for the Epstein class, which is very revealing, because my first impression when I read this was that this is a reference to Donald Trump. Ruthless exposure of the private lives of public figures. Number 19, the caution in public life that we unwittingly encourage is corrosive. Those who say nothing wrong often say nothing much at all. You can see a theme here that's like, we need to leave behind this hyper-feminized world. We need to leave behind the longhouse. Like, that's what this is. This is 22 points about why the longhouse is dead and we need to leave behind the longhouse. Number 20, the pervasive intolerance of religious belief in certain circles must be resisted. The elite's intolerance of religious belief is perhaps one of the most telling signs that its political project constitutes a less open intellectual movement than many within it would claim. He's calling the elites shallow, vapid cult members. In not so many words. Number 21, some cultures, listen, oh, this one's good. Some cultures have produced vital advances. Others remain dysfunctional and regressive. All cultures are now equal. Criticism and value judgments are forbidden. Yet this new dogma glosses over the fact that certain cultures, and indeed subcultures, have produced wonders. Others have proven middling and worse, regressive and harmful. I mean, like, I don't know how you could break this down in any other way except that this is easily the most right-wing public company on the planet. Ozzy Steen!
They don't understand the things I say on Twitter.
Done with my shifter. My day at Peter Thiel's technocratic empire. Happy name's Day, Mrs. Kingpill. Happy birthday, Dave, and everyone else who is celebrating.
Thank you, Ozzy Steen, you patriot. I trust that your day working as Peter Thiel's slave was productive. Hopefully it wasn't too embarrassing. Yeah, wait, I'm supposed to hate this guy? Like, are you aware of any other major public figures who are openly saying that some cultures are dysfunctional and regressive, and certain cultures and indeed subcultures have produced wonders? No more cultural. This is a carefully worded obliteration of the post-war ideology. Number 22, we must resist the shallow temptation of a vacant and hollow pluralism. We in America, and more broadly the West, have for the past half century resisted defining national cultures in the name of inclusivity. But inclusion into what? Inclusion into what? We must practice inclusivity. Inclusion into what? We must preserve the American ethnos. Vacant and hollow pluralism. This is excerpts from the #1 New York Times bestseller, The Technological Republic, Hard Power, Soft Belief, and the Future of the West by Alexander C. Karp and Nicholas W. Zamiska. Now, before I get to the Alex Karp videos, there was a couple of these here I wanted to share. So never before seen footage of how Palantir's Maven smart system actually works. It gives us the ability to take classified, unclassified, and commercial data, and you can aggregate it all together to help you make all the decisions that you have to in warfare. You want to understand why the U.S. military can execute with such targeted precision? This is why.
What's innovative is that this command center has access to all information from the battlefield through a single network of computers called Maven that supports all US and NATO operations.
On MSS, put something on there, keep people out of Hawk Hill. These screens deliver the picture through Maven Smart Systems, which takes in multiple different streams of data that operators are looking at and analyzing and giving me the recommendations or their understanding of what they've seen on the battlefield.
I think the first thing with Maven Smart Systems is it gives us the ability to take classified of all type, unclassified, and then commercial data, and you can aggregate it all together to help you make all the decisions that you have to in warfare.
Underpinning Maven is artificial intelligence.
Maven Smart Systems is a battle command system tool. We're starting now to use a lot of different machine learning or computer vision models.
Schiff! Slutty Milk says Trump posted a truth the other day explicitly praising Palantir and how it makes us effective at fighting. Yes, I saw that. He said Palantir and he posted the ticker. The audacity of the man. And a lot of people will talk about how Palantir has been used by, because Palantir has an office in Tel Aviv, I believe, and the Israeli military has used Palantir. What they don't realize is that Palantir was basically forced on the Israeli military, and it has, like, people are when matters of like military stuff, because everyone's a shit lib, or Israel stuff, or perish the thought, Israel stuff plus military stuff, when those matters come up, a lot of people's brains just short circuit. But what Palantir did is it took the Israeli operations from, I don't know, that guy over there just blow up the entire block, to it made them much more targeted. They were using a system before called Daddy's Home, where they would track a guy till he got home, and then they would hit him and just blow up his entire house with his whole family in it. Whereas with Palantir, they're much more precise and targeted. You remember the crazy precise targeting that they were doing with some of their strikes during the 12 Days War last year? That's because of Palantir. Most people don't have the moral backbone to actually enter into this field where there are military things happening, and you, as the service provider, can go into there and you can say, here's how you can reduce collateral damage while still doing the thing that you're doing. That may be more plausible than stop doing the thing that you're doing. You may not be able to make them stop doing the thing that they're doing, but you could make their thing much more targeted and have less collateral damage. Yeah, Palantir single-handedly ended Daddy's Home. That's correct.
To help, especially with imagery or videos. For example, you can have a computer vision model that's looking specifically for tanks. To do that, you have to take thousands of images of tanks and you train the model to look for those. So what you do is you take a picture of a tank and you draw a box around the tank and you tell the computer, this is a tank. And you do that 1,000 times. Now, when you feed an image to that model, it's going to tell you, yes, this is a tank, or no, it's not.
Once the computer has flagged an image where it suspects it's detected a tank, for instance, we don't just action that immediately, right? That's when we would take it to our human analyst and say, hey, can you confirm or deny that this was properly classified? What the AI is doing, it's not replacing the human, but it's enabling them to do their job faster so we can process more and more data and identify targets quicker and solve problems faster.
You could see why, I mean, that's a very simple, like a very basic example of what these sort of programs can do, but you can see why they become militarily, absolutely militarily necessary. Like once one military has this sort of technology, then every other military needs to have it, or they're going to be effectively flying blind. So here's another look from the Department of War's chief AI officer talking about the Palantir's Maven Smart System.
This is Maven Smart System, Palantir's software as a service product that we are deploying across the entire department. As you can see, it's not just one data feed, it's multiple. And instead of having 8 or 9 systems for those decision makers to look at every single day in order for them to make decisions, you then fuse it into a single visualization tool. The single visualization tool allows you to select, deselect different types of data, look at different approaches to data, but more importantly, action from the same system that you're trying to develop your workflows around. Once you have a detection that you want to actually move into a targeting workflow, for example, this is what we do. Left click, right click, left click, magically, it becomes a detection. That detection then gets moved into a workflow. This is standard digitized workflow, but I want to walk you through it quickly. You have different types of targets that are identified on the left there. Every single column produces a different type of decision-making process. Once you have that decision and you're trying to actually action that process, we now move into COA generation, course of action generation, where we are automatically, via a number of factors, trying to identify what the best asset to prosecute a target looks like. Once we've got the different approaches and we select one, we then can move directly into how do we action that target. So we've gone from identifying the target to now coming up with a course of action to now actioning that target, all from one system. This is revolutionary. We were having this done in about 8 or 9 systems where humans were literally moving detections left and right in order to get to our desired end state, in this case, actually closing a kill chain.
It's really freaking cool. It's totally transformed the way that military operations are conducted. Homeless Nomad said the increase in precision has meant we can prosecute war with less and less collateral damage to non-combatants. It's a very, very good thing. Yeah, all these people who have been, like Pavlov's dog, just like triggered to just spaz out every time they hear about Palantir and start like blathering about the Antichrist and stuff. They're talking about a technology, one example of a technology that has enabled warfare to be conducted. We're returning to an age where warfare is conducted between military combatants only, minimizing civilian casualties. Like once upon a time, the way that war was conducted was, generally speaking, armies would go out onto a battlefield and they would fight each other until one of them won. The battle is finished, and it was just military assets fighting military assets. Then it began to expand much more into civilian casualties, firebombing cities, nuking cities. But now we're returning to an age where war can be conducted. Like, you may get more instances of military activity, more protracted instances of military activity, but the actual casualties are being moved more and more away from civilians and back toward just military targets because of Palantir. Yeah, Palantir is helping to eliminate war crimes. That's right. Now, obviously, people can still commit war crimes. People can still kill civilians. There can still be mistakes. There can still be collateral damage. That sort of thing can still happen. And it's always going to happen because humans are imperfect and war is war. But as a military technology, this enables much more targeted precision. So now I've got a bunch of different clips here from Alex Karp talking about a variety of different things. Just so you read his 22, we read his 22 theses, and now you can get to know the man a little bit better. The dude is a fucking crackhead. He is an absolute lunatic, but I can't dislike him. He's just, I don't know. I just find him too entertaining, and it's very rare that you get there's like Michael Saylor, might be another one of these CEOs who's actually thinks deeply about philosophical issues. Of course, Donald Trump is the ultimate philosopher CEO, but Alex Karp and Michael Saylor are pretty good too.
"20 years ago, this was like from Mars freak show, all these views. The West must defend itself. The people producing this thing called software must be aligned with our government. We should not allow software institutions, to sell to our adversaries, but not sell to the U.S. government. The world will become disjointed and more violent."
An entire generation of extraordinarily talented engineers in Silicon Valley will not hesitate to dedicate their working lives to building, online shopping algorithms, the consumer apps on our phone. But when a U.S. Marine asks for a better software system, they hesitate. So much talent, so much funding in the Valley has rushed toward the consumer at the expense of what we would argue are more significant projects, from national defense to local law enforcement, healthcare, education. The question is, where do we want the resources of our country and our civilization to go?
The way you dominate the future is you dominate the present. I want America to be American in 1,000 years.
The book at its core is a call.
I want America to be American in 1,000 years. How's that for a line? This is the guy that I'm supposed to hate because he's a zany Jew who studied under Habermas. But I haven't seen any of the guys telling me to hate him. I haven't seen him dropping bars like, "I want America to be American in 1,000 years."
For us to reassess the value of concepts of national identity, of a shared culture, which will be essential for this country to remain as dominant in this century as it was in the last. It was a culture that absolutely won the last World War, and it will be a culture that either wins or prevents the next one.
Americans are the most loving, God-fearing, fair, least discriminatory people on the planet. And they want to know that if you're waking up and thinking about harming American citizens, or if American citizens are taken hostage and kept in dungeons, or if you're a foreign power sending fentanyl to poison our people, something really bad is going to happen to you and your friends and your cousins and your bank account and your mistress and whoever was involved.
Based. Isn't that an interesting connection here? Stanley Druckenmiller, the the guy who is the marionette, holding the marionette strings on Kevin Warsh and Scott Bessent. Stan Druckenmiller says it's one of the most important books he's ever met. So, the TLDR, Silicon Valley owes America a debt. It spent 20 years building photo apps when it should have been building weapons. The next era of deterrence runs on AI, not nukes. Our adversaries are not waiting for us to figure it out. Now the question is who builds it first and what they build it for. A couple of comments here I want to get to from the chat. Homeless Nomad said, I'm at an insurer now, which is using AI basically exactly the same way to identify damage for estimates. If it guesses right, great, sign off. If it doesn't, the analysts do what they already do. It's increased throughput by 5x. So this is what AI is going to drastically increase the productive capacity of the society as a whole and of individuals, which is going to free up space for other individuals with now an increased standard of living to go pursue other things. Ticon says, we as Americans are forever connected to the Jews. Like it or not, we must figure out a solution that isn't just 110. An ultimate solution. So true. So true, Ticon. And then Ticon said, Minority Report is going to be real, except with a more literal meaning. Yeah. Yeah, and your mistress. He's got some lines, man. So an example of him as just a complete and total crackhead. Here is him being interviewed by Kevin Warsh, interestingly enough, the incoming Fed chair. And he is notorious. So Alex Karp is notoriously both extremely ADHD and he's also really, really badly dyslexic. So watch him in the middle of, he's sitting here being interviewed, drinking wine, I think, and watch.
And I think I've heard you use it recently, sales. And I remember I showed up in your office once, I was dressed like this, and I think you screamed at one of the guys, you said, Kevin's here, he looks like the guy from IBM. And I was talking about, well, we need like really finance controls and, how are you going to sell the product and all this stuff. But I would say you certainly built that as a public company. You built all those controls. Sales isn't a dirty word anymore, but somehow you grafted that on to the strange company that can produce these products. How's that transition been, if I've got it right?
Well, just sitting there spinning a book on his finger. This is Alex Karp. He is a fucking schizo. Catherine Boyle from Andreessen Horowitz says, every preschool teacher in America should be required to watch this video of Alex Karp being completely unable to sit still on his chair.
What is the biggest problem in this culture? I'll tell you the biggest problem. No one believes the institutions are credible. And why don't they believe they're? And I struggle to believe they're credible too, because these business leaders make completely stupid decisions. And they get bailed out. A year later, they're getting huge bonuses. And what do the American people get? Nothing. And that's a huge problem. Like, if you make, so I think the real version is, I made a lot of decisions when we began talking, annoying each other 10 years ago. Hopefully I'm annoying you as much as 10 years ago, or more. When I made this, every decision Palantir made, FDAs, going public, building products, enterprise, large data sets, going to government, acknowledging American superiority, being pro-meritocracy, launching an AI platform, calling into question that AI models would actually be able to perform without orchestration. Every single one, our ontology, every single one of those was viewed as stupid. You know what I actually have grown to appreciate about capitalism? All the people who made the right decisions went broke, are going out of business, or now have to copy us. Microsoft launched ontology. Everyone wants to do FDEs. Everyone basically copies me and Palantir.
Now, after that happened, I forgot about this. Thank you, someone in the chat, for reminding me.
Decisions when we began talking, annoying each other 10 years ago. Hopefully I'm annoying you as much as 10 years ago, or more. When I made every decision.
I love how he's like reaching like all the way across and waving his hand right in his face. This is totally him. Like, he is the most spurg out dude of all time. But yes, it's who said that? Chat's flying. Raymond Harmon says high agency ADHD, not intellectual ADHD. Right. The dude wants to be doing something. He's like, he runs marathons, he cross-country skis, he's like, plays tennis, he is a lunatic, absolute lunatic. He also doesn't have much of a filter. And this is funny, given his thing where he talked, the one of the 22 Theses that was about like vanquishing an enemy as a time to like pause. He's not a perfect man.
You need a higher purpose, and I also think you often need a lower purpose. Like the higher purpose for me.
What's a lower purpose?
Well, I love the idea of getting a drone and having light fentanyl-laced urine spraying on analysts who tried to screw us. So that's my lower purpose. And, yeah, and others. But the higher purpose for me was to get this nation to be the preeminent power in the world, because whatever faults we have, they're nothing like anyone else's.
Getting a drone and having light fentanyl-laced urine sprayed on analysts that tried to screw us. He hates short sellers. He hates all of there's like a consistent theme that he talks about all the time, is how much deep and extraordinary contempt he has for all of the very serious analysts commenting on his stock and the valuation of his company and everything. He hates Michael Burry. He hates Michael Burry with a flaming passion. Here's him talking about the Palantir conspiracy theorists. This is what he has to say to them.
Conspiracy theorists, you may hate this, but there's one person protecting your right to be a conspiracy theorist that actually has a seat at the table, and that person is me. You may not want to hear that truth, but it is fucking true. Yeah. And maybe do a little more reading before you pontificate on your absurd and obviously ill-informed and many times stupid opinions. Okay, so because like you're attacking the person who's protecting you, idiot. It's like fucking so stupid.
Okay, and I got to remember to scroll down on some of these because there was a few of these that are have a handful of clips on one.
What else would be a part of the good outcome?
Well,
Reskilling.
the most important part of a good outcome is we show our adversaries you can't fuck with us.
What else?
I want more. I want more CEOs like this. I'm sorry. I want my CEOs to talk and act like this.
One of the things we did with PG, we did with Gaia, we did with Meta Constellation, it's not just that we win clients, it's that we set a standard that the competition can never meet. And that this is really important for our go-to-market strategy. It's like, you can pretend you're going to build PG. The French government announces they're going to rebuild it for $40 million. You can't rebuild PG for $40 million. You can't rebuild it for $1 billion. You need us. You can't rebuild Foundry. You can't rebuild. When we go to market with AIP, the clients are learning two things. They're learning, oh, I could use this. They're learning how to use it. They're also now going to go to every other vendor and say, but I want my thing to provide operational results. And Palantir has done this in 6 hours. I like you better. I'll give you 6 days. I prefer you. Your steak dinner is better. Your suit is better. Your backing from the analyst is better. You don't have the madman sticking up for things that are good and right in the world, despite them being unpopular. And you get all that. I'll give you an extra 10 days. Well, try that with PG. It's ridiculous. Try it with Foundry. It's ridiculous. Try it with Meta Constellation. No one even bothers trying that. No one tries this on Gaia. And they're not going to try it on AIP either. And that's one of the most important things we do as a company. Because in the end, it is actually very attached to our mission. My view of what we should do is build products that are so good that the competition stops competing, whether that's in commercial or on the battlefield. And that's what we're doing.
Very Thiel-esque there. My view is to build products so good the competition stops competing. No anti-monopoly sentiment here. This is another good one.
Are they trying to destabilize our country with fentanyl, with TikTok, and do you have concerns about that?
Okay, obviously. But again, I'll tell you what. So they're obviously.
I'm in full agreement.
Okay, but my version always of this is it's their job to destabilize us. It's our job to be stable. And like, it's like when most people here are running successful businesses, it's
actually
like,
well said. Yeah, it's our job to be stable.
It's our stable. Like, if you want to, the Tai Chi version of like, you're not going to have to enter the fight if you're strong. There is no fight. If there's a fight, like the famous martial arts thing is like, if you're in a fight, you're not a martial artist.
Correct.
And this is like the same thing in business. Like when you get to the point where you're competing with someone, you've really fucked something up.
I cannot get enough of his mentality. If you're to the point where you're competing with someone, you fucked something up. Yeah, it's their job to destabilize us, and it's our job to be stable. This is the mentality that I want to see in the leadership of my country. From the chat here, Well Below Average said, Mr. Karp once said, he has said that the thought of having children gives him hives, so while amusing and useful, he is a genetic dead end. And Living Dead said, wait, the Jew CEO is ending his bloodline while he's working tirelessly to fix Silicon Valley in favor of Americans? Patriot. When you put it that way. And Ticon says, rather hang with this dude than blackpilling homos any day. That's what I'm saying. This dude is actually doing something. You can have all the opinions that you want about whether what he's doing is good or bad, but the man's in the arena. And he's compelling to listen to and talk to. You don't have to agree with him. You don't have to like him, but he's clearly a thoughtful dude. And he's got a lot of really good advice and a lot of inspiring things. I would much rather have guys like this around than just the whining, complaining, doom-spurging peanut gallery. Here's another similar clip. You'll notice some themes in his mentality, the stuff he talks about. And when I first started identifying the PayPal Mafia phenomenon, started talking about that a couple of years ago, and which led to like predicting J.D. Vance as the vice president, like these were the sorts of guys that I was recognizing. There's a clip in here somewhere. It might have been with Shankar or Sankar, Shyam Sankar. Another one. So here's the zany Marxist Jew that it turns out is actually I don't know, cool and based. And then later there will be the Jeet dude who is also cool and based. But these are these are the guys. These were the guys when I was talking about Silicon Valley and them making this hard shift to the right and this emergent tech right thing. This was the sort of mentality I was looking at.
I don't think in win-lose. I think in domination. So I don't like this win-lose thing because it kind of presupposes okay to lose. And I think domination is important because it's
Winners
very
only.
hard to build. Like, it's very hard to build a business. And one of the real reasons it's hard is you've got to sit next to someone who is annoying you every cell in your body every day. And they may be right. So it's like every day you're dealing with somebody who is really annoying and they're wrong 9 times out of 10. But the 10th time they save your life. And so I think if it's just about money, if it's just about winning, if it's just about having prestige, for me that's not enough to do that. That I could have just I don't know, that's not enough because that is just real, and it's super humiliating. We have this thing where a lot of Palantirians are getting wealthy, and when I used to do a lot of therapy for people, largely in the beginning, to explain to engineers why their social life wasn't as good as their IQ, and this is not even like me making it up. It's completely true. It's like, yes, I know you have 180 IQ, but I know they should like you more, but they don't. It's online. But like something, it's kind of a great problem to have, but like a conversation I've now had 50 times in the last 2 months is like, yes. And the more successful you are and the more money you have, the more humiliation you're going to deal with every day. And the more you're going to feel it. I got these people around me, no one believes it, but like all day, no, you're wrong. Yeah, well, maybe the other left or whatever, however they want to humiliate me. It's a dyslexia joke. No, go turn the other left.
Ticon said, get this guy's tech to Stephen Miller immediately. I just Googled Palantir contract with ICE, and here's what the AI overview says. As of April 2026, Palantir Technologies has deepened its long-standing partnership with ICE, primarily through the development and implementation of an AI-driven platform called Immigration OS. This platform is designed to assist with near real-time tracking of immigrants and the logistics of mass deportation efforts, with a contract valued at over $30 million. This is Immigration OS is the Immigration Lifecycle Operations System. It serves as an upgrade to ICE's existing investigative case management platform, integrating data from various federal and private sources. It's used to prioritize enforcement targets such as violent criminals and visa overstays, and to track individuals undergoing self-deportation. Palantir developed a tool called Enhanced Leads Identification and Targeting for Enforcement, or ELITE, which maps potential deportation targets, provides dossiers, and assigns a confidence score on a target's location. The contract for Immigration OS was reported as a $30 million award in April of 2025, which added to an existing 2022 deal for ICM, bringing the total value of these systems to over $145 million, with the new contract scheduled to run through September of 2027. ICE designated Palantir as the only source that could deliver the prototype within the required time frame, citing the company's deep familiarity with ICE operations, a partnership dating back to at least 2011. The software allows ICE to aggregate data from multiple databases, including passport records, tax data, license plate readers, and, according to reporting, information from the Department of Health and Human Services. The new tools are designed to facilitate faster enforcement decisions and to streamline the entire deportation process, from identification to final removal. The system uses generative AI to analyze tips and translate data. And privacy and labor rights advocates have sued over these initiatives, arguing that the technology enables mass surveillance, risks targeting individuals wrongly, and lacks adequate oversight. You know, the way that that Peter Thiel and Alex Karp met, they met at Stanford Law School together, and they quickly struck up a friendship over debating like philosophy. And the way they both tell the story is that they disagreed on essentially everything and just constantly argued opposite positions to each other. Because he studied at the Frankfurt School under Habermas, and Peter Thiel was writing about the diversity myth in 1995. So they became friends because of the fact that they just argued and disagreed about absolutely everything, and then wound up founding Palantir together with Joe Lonsdale. I've got a Joe Lonsdale video here in just a minute. Okay, the next one here. Again, here's the guy that you're supposed to hate. He says, "Our country has selective empathy for everybody, but working class, particularly white males." He's saying this to the New York Times.
Our country has selective empathy for everybody but working class, particularly white males. So when you look at coverage in mainstream newspapers about the constitutionality of blowing up boats that are bringing fentanyl here, I guarantee you, if that fentanyl was killing people at schools we went to, potentially your kids are going to, it would be constitutional to blow up those boats. There is selective instrumental use of empathy that somehow is only applied at the point where it would help
back to the
us.
idea of, what about
sorry, you asked the question, you're going to get the full answer you don't want. The full answer you don't want. You brought me on stage, you know what you're getting. Okay.
The best way ever to talk over someone. Slutty Milk says the hatred of Palantir is starting to smell like a leftist op to weaken America. That is exactly what it is. They hated him for telling the truth. Here's more on I'll speed this up here a little bit.
The thing is, if you come from nothing and you're this amorphous, racially dyslexic person from a very specific kind of culture, not even Jewish culture, it's like super acritic, Germanic, left-wing culture, you assume the world may not work out for you, and it's definitely not looking out for you. Okay, so what other group of people in this culture have exactly the same vibe? Yeah, soldiers, people on the factory floor. Who does the dying and bleeding for us? Soldiers, people on the factory floor. Who gets killed because somehow constitutional legal scholars only read the Constitution so it's expansive to protect their rights. So their right to be happy, their right to go to Yale, their right to be wealthy, their right to be safe. But somehow the Constitution cannot be read to stop the reality of, like, in the last 2 years, more people have died of fentanyl than every single person who's died as a soldier since World War II. But they can't, and part of it is, like, they have a lot of intellectual reasons, but the real reason is they don't see themselves as having had the same fate But if you're me, you look at those people, and then, quite frankly, look at the U.S. Army. Look who fought and died for our rights today. By the way, it was mostly working class people from what the elite calls flyover states. It still is. And then look at the U.S. military. It integrated. First to integrate, first to bring meritocracy. It still fights for meritocracy. It's the first major institution in the world to say, I don't care where you're from. And they did it way before American society. So that's that version. Then there's the economic stability version.
And on a similar note, he said this. There's Sankar there. There's our G.
The thing is, if you come...
By the way, let me say something slightly political, and I'm not saying other people agree with this, but when people are attacking our soldiers for stopping fentanyl from coming to this country, I want people to remember, if fentanyl was killing 60,000 Yale grads instead of 60,000 working class people, we'd be dropping a nuclear bomb on whoever was sending it from South America. So, it's slightly like we in this at Palantir, we are on the side of the average American who sometimes gets screwed because all the empathy goes to elite people, and none of it goes to the people who are actually dying on our streets. And that's why, it's like when you have an open border, it means that the average poor American earns less. I know my fellow progressives believe having an open border is going to make things, but that's because they're actually repping elite people instead of the working class. And the same thing in South America, where it's like, to believe our Constitution does not give us the right to stop 60,000 deaths a year of working class men and women is insane. And this country is right to stop that. And I am very proud. I don't know all the efforts we're involved in, but to the extent we're involved in these efforts, I and most Palantirians are very proud of this.
I mean, at this point, I just got to hit play. It speaks for itself. This is the guy that you've been convinced you need to hate because he's like a Marxist Jew who is collaborating with Peter Thiel to bring about the Antichrist or something.
Now you get to Silicon Valley. My one message and again, I'm without getting in specific people, or because I'm like, if Silicon Valley believes we are going to take away everyone's white-collar job, meaning primarily Democratic-shaped people whom I grew up with, highly educated people who went to elite schools or went to schools that are almost elite.
She's talking about email jobs. And he's recognizing the email jobs are overwhelmingly populated by Democrats.
Educated people who went to elite schools or went to schools that are almost elite who vote for one party. And you're going to screw the military. If you don't think that's going to lead to nationalization of our technology, you're retarded. And you might be particularly retarded because you have a 160 IQ. But this is where that path is going. Now,
this is more of that, just like that pragmatism. Like if he's talking to I think that the context of this was like Anthropic and Dario Amodei and like trying to like say no, we get right of first refusal on launching nukes or launching defense mechanisms for incoming ICBMs, that sort of thing. I think he's talking in that context. He's talking to the AI doomer class of like the Eliezer Yudkowskis, the Nick Boströms of Silicon Valley, which are this is like the core blue constituency in Silicon Valley. They've been having these wars over AI. The safetyists and the doomers versus the accelerationists. They've been having these for years. And it was paying attention to this and following this subculture. I recognize this is going to become our national politics. That's how fundamental, that's how important of an issue this is. So those are the people he's speaking to. You're talking about introducing a technology that is going to totally wipe out the employment for a bunch of white collar people who are Democrat inclined. And you're also going to say, fuck you to the military. Like, I'm going to try to get a big dick with you, which is like very right-wing inclined. He's like, you're out of your mind if you don't think that this is going to result in the total nationalization of our industry. This is like just dealing with the world as it is. We need an Alex Karp chair gymnast emote. That'd be really funny in the emote form. I'll see if I can make that happen. Zoomer Dylan says the most based guys all worked under Marxists at least once. It is interesting how there's a lot of Marxists, even present Marxists, but especially sort of like reformed Marxists, who are genuinely some of the most clever, insightful people on the planet. Raymond Harmon says, waiter, more techno-fascism, please. Yeah.
Waiter, more fascism, please.
But let's see here. Okay, so now, here is Shyam Sankar, who is the CTO for Palantir. And this is, of course, another guy that I've been told I have to hate because he's a Jeet. But if I played these clips and didn't show you what he looks like, then you would have no idea.
What would I tell my children? Like, what should they learn right now?
Yeah.
And really what I want to cultivate in them is agency, extreme agency. Like, I think all the other skills you'll be able to figure out as you go, but, do you really believe that your human effort can make a dent on the planet? And how do you experience that and live that? Then where would you spend time? I think Palantir is an amazing platform to have impact on the world. The things that you do in the commercial sector impact the government and vice versa. And, you have access to the problems. You're in it. But second to that, it's like when you're thinking about being inside of a company, I think AI is going to be the antidote to the managerial revolution of the 20th century.
There you go. Managerial revolution mentioned.
I think AI is going to be the antidote to the managerial revolution of the 20th century. All this power that was sucked away from the frontline worker who actually knew what they were doing to an amorphous blob of middle managers. And even actually they sucked power away from the senior leadership. That's being reversed because all of the bureaucracy is getting cut. The agency that someone has. I was thinking about this because in the military, I'm seeing incredible AI application developers who are not formally trained computer scientists. And I was like, what happened? I've been doing this for 20 years. This feels like a discontinuity. Where do these people come from? And I realized, they've always been there. The thing is, what would this guy have done 10 years ago? Make a PowerPoint, try to convince some program manager that his ideas were good, only to be told they weren't, knowing full, he's too smart for that. He's not going to waste his time. Now he just goes away in a corner for 2 weeks and builds it. And he's arguing about something that's empirical. And the commander's like, shit, this works. Let's go.
I've got a couple more of him, and I'm going to kind of go through these a little bit faster because I do want to read this article about the reactionaries. But I'd encourage you to go he's done a bunch of podcasts recently. He's been on the Sean Ryan show. I think he's been on All In podcast. I'd encourage you to go listen to his long form stuff because this is one thing you'll notice with whether it's Karp or Sankar or Joe Lonsdale, who I'll play a couple clips of here in just a minute. All of these guys are like very well studied about especially American military history. There's a couple of these videos here that will make some references, but they're genuinely extremely sharp, I think they're good faith. From following them, I think that they are good faith, even in places where I disagree with them. Like Lonsdale openly talks about how ardent of a Zionist he is. Same with Karp. And I've selectively picked some of these clips here. You can go find some really cringy stuff from them, stuff talking about like Israel, and with Karp talking about like progressives and race stuff and all that sort of thing. It's absolutely out there. But like you have this guy and that guy, and they're the same guy. It's in the same person. So you're not going the good stuff that they're bringing to bear is they're like the only people in the public eye who are talking about these things or pushing this sort of worldview or perspective on reality in a good sense. So yeah, there's definitely bad stuff that comes with it, but this is like the story of humanity.
And I think Iran really shows, if you look at Midnight Hammer, you look at Maduro, it's hard to think about things that have happened that have done more to restore deterrence than those events. There is this, I like to characterize the American character. There's a sense in which we seem not to react. We turn the other cheek, we turn the other cheek, we turn the other cheek. But there's a moment that comes where we stop. And then to borrow a favorite expression I have is, and in that moment, you really risk the American OODA loop, which is not observe, orient, decide, act. It's observe, overreact, destroy, apologize. Yeah. And I think this is almost so irrational, but so part of the American character that our adversaries can't contemplate it. They continue to model us as these rational actors who keep turning the other cheek, and they don't see the discontinuity that's coming. Now, I think this is one of our great advantages, actually, that it's very hard to model what we're going to do because, frankly, we don't know what we're going to do when we get there.
This is such a good observation about the American posture to the rest of the world. The American OODA loop is observe, overreact, destroy, apologize. But there was someone else, this reminded me of a quote, and I couldn't find it. I was looking for it, but there was someone who'd pointed this out recently that they said, like, the rest of the world doesn't know what America is going to do, and that's because America doesn't know what America is going to do. We're like the ultimate vibes-based country. We're gonna coast along on our vibes, and then we're going to change our vibes when we feel like it. Nobody's going to be prepared for it. And every time it happens, there's a massive explosive change that this is a characteristic that America uniquely provides to the world. Let's see here. Another one here. So this is him talking about, so Alex Karp I'm not going to play this video, but he says, Palantir's products are still integrated with Anthropic for now until the Department of War phases them out. He says, Palantir is the most important protector of the Fourth Amendment and the right to privacy because of how our product works, and I'm deeply committed to that. The Fourth Amendment does not apply to adversaries on the battlefield where we are confronting people who want to kill us. The only institution widely respected by every demographic in this country is the U.S. military. They deserve the best and most lethal technology in the world, and we at Palantir are going to make for fucking sure that they get it. Whether we get it from Anthropic, OpenAI, from Elon Musk and XAI, or NVIDIA or Google, we're committed to the warfighter getting the best technology. And then here is Sankar with a little, pulling out a little historical anecdote to buttress the point here. Gotta get it sped up. There we go. Share screen.
Anthropic, a company that you partnered with to power a lot of what you're doing in terms of AI. And obviously there's a huge debate now, more than a debate, the Department of War describing them as a supply chain risk. Do you believe that they are heretics?
I think, first of all, it is in our national interest for every AI lab to be in the fight with us collectively as a nation. So I hope we find a way of resolving this. But I also think it's important for us to recognize, as technologists, to have some epistemic humility. That just because we have deep knowledge in one area and really are inventing technology, we may not have all the facts in other areas here. And I go back to Theodore Hall and Edward Hall. So Edward Hall built the Minuteman missile. His younger brother, Theodore Hall, was one of the youngest Manhattan Project scientists. Theodore Hall was a genius physicist. In his infinite wisdom, he thought, well, because I'm a genius physicist, I'm also a geopolitical strategist. The world will have world peace if two countries have the bomb. And he walked into the New York trade mission of the Soviets and gave them critical secrets to the bomb. You might say every death since 1949, since the Soviets got the bomb due to communism, some of that blood's on his hands. So there's a need for epistemic humility. We have elected officials who are accountable for these policies. Do we, the degenerate case is it's tyranny by tech bro.
But let me...
Tyranny by tech bro. Yeah, I actually didn't know about that story about Edward Hall and Theodore Hall. There's one thing that's very consistent about all of these Palantir guys is they are all unabashed about their total visceral hatred for communism. A couple of comments here I wanted to get here real quick. Living Dead said, just like how retards can't manage to discuss things in generalities and have to appeal to edge cases, the inverse is the based retard that can't recognize a valuable exception when they exist. That's such a good point. He says you can hold the concept of Jeets at the same time as acknowledging that there are some that are actually geniuses that we want on our side. Very much so. Totally. Homeless Nomad says Trump's economic policies have a lot of crossover with very old left economic positions, which essentially no longer exist in the conversation thanks to progressive/sockdem bullshit and neoliberalism. Right. And then he said, it's a known character of Angle cultures. Yes. Nothing. Explosion which kills you. Nothing. Yeah, right. So here is, let's see, what do I got left here? Okay, so I got a Sankar clip and then a couple of Joe Lonsdale clips because he's the other founder of Palantir. Well, Sankar's not a founder of Palantir. He's the CTO. He was employee number 13. But Lonsdale is one of the founders, and he doesn't get as much attention as Thiel and Karp. But he has his podcast is called The American Optimist, which is excellent branding. The American Optimist podcast.
Maybe the philosophical point, at the risk of saying something a little controversial, is I think monopsony is the root of what ails us here. When we were building ICBMs, the Army, Air Force, and Navy were all competing. There was no joint program office. It was this American aesthetic of competition is going to make us better. When we were building submarine-launched ballistic missiles, we had 4 concurrent competing programs. There was real fundamental risk to buy down, and the retrospective analysis is it was cheaper and faster. People often throw out this idea that, if we have all these parallel efforts, it's going to be more expensive, but history would suggest that you go faster. You don't achieve 85% reduction in launch costs like SpaceX without that sort of competition. And NASA's own internal cost estimates of building the Falcon 9 was, using cost accounting, it would have been $4 billion, but Elon did it for $400 million. For $10 billion, Elon has put 300 rockets in orbit. For $11 billion, the state of California has built 1,600 feet of elevated rail with no rail. So I think so monopsony is a structural part of, that's kind of part of your reality. So then you have to kind of wake up every day and try to fight that back a little bit and think about how do I approximate market mechanisms at some fundamental level.
And again, monopsony is when you have a single buyer. So it's the like the sort of, it's like the inverse of a monopoly. With a monopsony, you have, hold on a second. Yeah. Yeah, you have a single purchaser.
We either believe in the free market or we don't. I like to quip that everybody, including the Russians and the Chinese, have given up on communism, except for Cuba and the DoD. You know, we have these 5-year centralized plans. And so we need a little bit more overlap because that's where innovation comes from. And that's what enables industry to self-organize around this and pushes us to do better. We often fixate on how much competition, we need more competition in industry. By all means, let's have that. But what I think we're actually missing, the highest order bit, is that we need more competition inside of government. That's how you break the monopsony and encourage innovation in that spirit. And I think that's a big part of how we can go much faster together.
So here's Lawndale. And I was just looking at Lawndale's, he started off as an intern at PayPal. I was just looking at the Wikipedia. It says he was described as leaning right and a politically conservative contrarian. At Stanford, he joined other right and libertarian-leaning students at the Stanford Review. In 2021, The Guardian described Lonsdale as a regular critic of woke politics. He has criticized feminine energy, associating it with societal dysfunction in American cities and courts. He founded the Cicero Institute conservative think tank in 2016, and he runs it along with his wife, Taylor. The group has pushed for criminalizing homelessness and rejecting housing-first policies. The group publishes a template for state legislation that includes fines of up to $5,000 for repeatedly violating encampment bans and language to facilitate involuntary psychiatric commitments. According to Rolling Stone, the Cicero Institute, quote, helped transform homelessness policing from a niche fixation of a segment of Silicon Valley into a rallying cry in the culture war. He was also one of the founders of the University of Austin, the private university. He founded it with Barry Weiss. It's very much like an intellectual dark web kind of vibe. When asked why he created the university, he expressed his view that Ivy League universities and Stanford had been conquered by radical far-left ideologues, and that people could no longer become professors or PhD students at such institutions unless they acquiesced to the woke mind virus. The University of Austin promised forbidden courses involving topics including science, religion, race, gender politics, and conservatism, with lecturers including prominent tech founders and venture capitalists like Mark Andreessen, Antonio Garcia Martinez, and others. In April of 2025, Lonsdale convened a closed-door meeting of University of Austin faculty and staff in which, according to Politico, he articulated a sharply partisan vision for the institution, asserting that staff and faculty should adhere to a set of ideological principles, and warned that those uncomfortable with his views should consider leaving. And early in 2025, Lonsdale announced he was working to embed a team of engineers inside the Food and Drug Administration to accelerate the FDA's latest AI initiatives, a claim the Department of Health and Human Services later said was not true. After the shooting deaths of 2 protesters in January 2026 in Minneapolis, Lonsdale decried the protesters as being an organized illegal insurgency. In 2024, he joined Douglas Leone, David Sachs, and other venture capitalists and tech executives in supporting Elon Musk's America PAC. He's been described as a friend and political confidant of Musk's. He's among the leaders of the Super PAC. He has advocated for publicly hanging criminals to demonstrate masculine leadership. He has also promoted the opinions and lectures of Peter Thiel about the Antichrist. In 2026, following the capture of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, Lonsdale reposted another person's tweet that commies should be blown up, writing, exactly, what did you think founding Palantir was supposed to be about? This is Joe Lonsdale.
And how does that impact?
No, it's fair.
Yeah.
Listen, I obviously think lower taxes is better, but I would be fine to pay like way higher taxes myself just to have a competent functioning society. I want to be clear about that. Like, I am not voting for lower taxes here. Like,
That's not my question. My question is different.
Taxes, and they're better. But like, I would literally pay a 90% tax rate. I'm fucking rich, Michael. I would pay a 90% tax rate if we could keep our society competent. If we could stop having illegals swarm into our country, if we can fire accountable bureaucrats, if we can put systems into place to make our government competent, if we could stop having regulators harass and destroy and impugn, builders, like I will pay whatever taxes that takes. I'll pay like 90% of my fortune, because like we need our country to be functional for my kids and grandkids and everyone else to live in a functional society. I think that's like the important point here. Like, that this is not about saving some dollars on taxes. Like, this is about saving our civilization.
Again, this is a guy who describes himself as a passionate Zionist. He is ardently Zionist. Now, from what I can gather, what he means by Zionist is basically like he believes that Israel should exist and that Israel is our ally and that we should have good relationships with Israel. I don't think when he says Zionism, I don't think that it means that he's like committed to the greater Israel project. Because I think that's a distinction. Like the term Zionism has had the same thing that happens to every other single ism, that it sort of starts getting watered down. And basically Zionism, for a lot of people, just means I think Israel should exist. I think the nation of Israel should exist and that they're one of our greatest allies. But again, like Randy Fine at the beginning, if we're going to have Zionists around, I want these guys. I would rather have Zionists like him than super based anti-Zionist retards that just spray diarrhea on the internet for a hobby. Yeah, he's literally saying he will spend endless money to get the low-value people out. And then last clip of, I believe this is my last clip of him. Yeah, this is again him talking about the economy, about jobs, AI, etc.
Listen, this is a really tough conversation. Fortunately, I'm not a politician, so I can just be really blunt with you.
I would expect nothing less,
yes.
Joe.
So I'm going to say this, and it's going to be taken out of context, but you actually need to destroy some jobs for the country to do better. And so what I mean by this is, Morgan, if we wanted to all have infinite jobs, we would ban farm tools. We're looking out over a beautiful valley with lots of farms, and in the old days, to get that much food, you would have had 10 times as many people making that food. And that would be lots of jobs. That'd be a terrible thing, right? We'd all be much poorer. Everything would be more expensive. So what you actually need to do with AI is you need to raise productivity, which means fewer people could do more with less, and the whole society then gets wealthier. And then there's other things that other people can create. And so if productivity finally does go up, that's a good thing. It's not something to be afraid of. It's something we desperately need.
And of course, that becomes an engine for economic growth as well.
That's the only way you grow. That's the only way that we get wealthier in this economy is doing more with less. And everyone's afraid of it, but it's actually ironic that you have this Luddite fear, because this is the only way we solve our national debt crisis. It's the only way that the working class and middle class can more easily afford health care, can afford a cost of living, can afford nice homes. Like a lot of the young people now, especially in our cities and around there, they can't afford a cost of living at all. They can't afford to have kids. It's a mess. AI and higher productivity could actually solve all of these things.
And I do.
He and his wife, there was another clip that I didn't include because it's like 6 minutes long. But he and his wife are like super pro-natalist. They're like max kids, like have as many kids as you possibly can. Homeless Nomad said, yeah, Zionism is a very broad term and includes everything from Likudnik eschatological nonsense to people who prefer Likud be out of power and Israel be a real country. Right. And Living Dead said, Israel should exist as boilerplate normie right-wing person that is actually getting things done. Yes. Those are the guys that I want to be around. I want to be around the boilerplate right-wing normie who's getting shit done. He's like, oh yeah, Israel should exist and they're our great ally. I would much rather be around them than the guys who do nothing but post and demoralize everyone. Okay, so now there's let's see here, a couple of posts. The first one, let me read this to you guys. So originally written in French, but it's talking about the Palantir's, or the Alex Karp's Palantir's 22 Theses. So this guy here says, since Palantir just laid out a fairly lucid assessment of the current situation with Alex Karp's 22 Theses, I'd like to take the opportunity to offer my interpretation of Peter Thiel's Antichrist, because most of the interpretations floating around miss the mark entirely. They caricature him as a mystical paranoid billionaire who sees Greta Thunberg as a demon. It's easy, it's viral, it's wrong. Here's what I make of it after listening to a lot of his interviews. Thiel isn't obsessed with the end of the world. He's obsessed with self-transcendence, with science, progress, humanity's capacity to push back its own limits. When he talks about the Antichrist, he's not talking about a supernatural figure. He's talking about a system. Now, I don't think this is entirely accurate, but I think it's a reasonable good faith interpretation, and it has a lot of accuracy to it. I do think that Peter Thiel is actually talking about a supernatural figure, but you're getting really deep into the esoterica to parse that. The system is the one he describes in one of his recent interviews, linked below. Elon in 2022 saying we'll never go back to the moon, And the moon isn't the moon, it's the symbol. The symbol that the little gray men have won, that bureaucracy has won, that those who want to freeze the status quo, protect people, secure, regulate, frame things, have rigidified our entire societies. His assessment is simple and empirical. There's no innovation anywhere anymore, except in tech. Why? Because tech is still a game of infinite sums. Value is created there from nothing. Prosperity is generated there. Everywhere else, education, health, real estate, energy, transport, we've regulated, bureaucratized, protected so much that we've killed the infinite sum games. All that's left are zero-sum games. And a zero-sum game, by definition, is pure competition for a slice of a pie that no longer grows. And that's where Girard speaks through Thiel. Mimetic competition drives humans to do absolutely anything, to destroy each other for crumbs. Thiel's Antichrist is this: the global system that, under the guise of protecting us from Armageddon, AI, climate, nuclear pandemics, collectively deprives us of any capacity for transcendence. That turns Western civilization into a vast machine for preserving the status quo. Total alignment. Stagnation presented as a virtue. Quote, this is a quote from Peter Thiel. The slogan of the Antichrist is peace and safety, end quote. Peace and safety, not war and chaos. It's exactly the opposite of what they make him out to say. The trap isn't technology running wild. The trap is the global government being put in place to save us from technology. The trap is that, in trying to avoid every existential risk, we build the only system that's truly existentially dangerous. The one where nothing moves anymore, where no one transcends anymore, where humanity accepts its own domestication. When he points to Yudkowsky, Bostrom, or Thunberg as legionnaires, he's not saying they're evil. He's saying they're the unwitting intellectual vectors of a world where everything is frozen in the name of fear. Karp's 22 Theses fit into the same grammar. When he writes that the decadence of a civilization will only be forgiven if that culture is capable of delivering economic growth and security, or that civil servants don't get to be our priests, he's saying the same thing differently. A civilization that no longer produces anything, that no longer transcends itself, that contents itself with self-administration, doesn't survive. We can disagree with Thiel, we can find the theological analogy excessive, we can highlight the irony of Palantir, but before caricaturing him, we should at least understand what he's really saying. The real threat of our era isn't too much innovation, it's the organized incapacity of our systems to produce anymore. And this is the fundamental breakdown between the effective altruists and the accelerationists, like the EAC types. This is their breakdown. The EAC types say to the effective altruists that you, in the name of like preventing the AI god, are going to totally freeze and try to lock everything in amber, and you're going to create massive mimetic conflict and fight to the death over a diminishing pool of resources. And counter to that, we actually need to be growing. We need to be building. We need to be creating. We need to be expanding. We need to be growing the pool of resources to prevent that sort of mimetic conflict. Now, there's plenty of the EAC guys who go like way overboard, and they turn like capital itself into a god in a very Landian sense, and sometimes self-consciously. But that's the real big breakdown between the accelerationists and the EAs or effective altruists is do we err on the side of safety or do we err on the side of productivity? And then here's a clip from Thiel himself talking about this. This was in 2025.
You know, how do we articulate, you know, some of these existential risks, some of the challenges we have, and they're all framed as sort of runaway dystopian science texts. There's a risk of nuclear war. There's a risk of environmental disaster, maybe something specific like climate change, although there are lots of other ones we come up with. There's a risk of, bioweapons. You have all the different sci-fi scenarios. Obviously, there are certain types of risks with AI. But I always think that if we're going to have this frame of talking about existential risks, perhaps we should also talk about the risk of another type of a bad singularity, which I would describe as the one world totalitarian state. Because I would say the political solution, the default political solution people have for all these existential risks is one world governance. And the Christian framing, which in some ways is the same question, is Antichrist or Armageddon. You have the one world state of the Antichrist, or we're sleepwalking towards Armageddon. One world or none, Antichrist or Armageddon, on one level are the same question. The way the Antichrist would take over the world is you talk about Armageddon nonstop. You talk about existential risk nonstop, and this is what you need to regulate. It's
you despair, you doom out, you black pill relentlessly.
the opposite of the picture of Baconian science from the 17th, 18th century, where, you know, the Antichrist is like some evil tech genius, evil scientist who invents this machine to take over the world. People are way too scared for that. In our world, the thing that has political resonance is the opposite. It is the thing that has political resonance is we need to stop science. We need to just say stop to this. And this is where, I don't know, in the 17th century, I can imagine a Dr. Strangelove, Edward Teller type person taking over the world. In our world, it's far more likely to be Greta Thunberg.
This is my very specific question for you, right? Is that you're an investor in AI. You're deeply invested in Palantir, in military technology, in technologies of surveillance, in technologies of warfare, and so on, right? And it just seems to me that when you tell me a story about the Antichrist coming to power and using the fear of technological change to sort of impose order on the world, I feel like that Antichrist would maybe be using the tools that you were building, right? Like, wouldn't the Antichrist be like, great, we're not going to have any more technological progress, but I really like what Palantir has done so far, right?
Yeah,
I mean, isn't that a concern? Wouldn't that be the irony of history would be that the man publicly worrying about the Antichrist accidentally hastens his or her arrival?
Very good question.
There are all these different scenarios. I obviously don't think that that's what I'm doing.
I mean, to be clear, I don't think that's what you're doing either. I'm just interested in how you get to a world willing to submit to permanent authoritarian rule.
Well, but again, there are these different gradations of this we can describe. But is this so preposterous that the entire world has submitted for 50 years to peace and safetyism? This is 1 Thessalonians 5:3. The slogan of the Antichrist is peace and safety, and we've submitted to the FDA regulates not just drugs in the U.S., but de facto in the whole world, because the rest of the world defers to the FDA. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission effectively regulates nuclear power plants all over the world. People, you can't design a modular nuclear reactor and just build it in Argentina. They won't trust the Argentinian regulators. They're going to defer to the U.S. And so it's at least a question about why we've had 50 years of stagnation.
So tomorrow we'll talk a little bit more, or Wednesday, depending on when I end up doing the next show. Just a fair warning, may not end up being tomorrow morning. We'll see how the rest of this day goes. But me going really late today, might have to just swap the day off and do a show tomorrow instead of do the show on Wednesday and have tomorrow off. We'll see. But the next show, the next Lab, we're going to talk about Peter Thiel and his commentary on the Antichrist and this lecture series that he was doing. Guy leaked some of the talking points out, and they were published, and he got banned from it. But we at least can see some of the stuff that Peter Thiel's been talking about, and there's some very interesting thoughts in there. So we'll talk about that more on the next Lab. But now I would like to read you guys this article. See, so one thing that should be clear about all of these guys that I've showed you, and some of them you may not have necessarily gathered it from this video, but if you go listen to them, like every one of them, Sankar, Lonsdale, Karp, Thiel, they're all on the record as with long form conversations. They're very clearly
Black Billing is worshipping the devil. Palantir is trying to steal my loot. Claude told me to make HRT in my bathtub out of old shopping bags.
Don't do it, Living Dead. You must live. You must not dead. Don't make the HRT. Don't listen to Claude. Thank you for the $5. You can see that these guys are all well-read, very intelligent, very philosophically inclined, very philosophically rigorous, let's say. And I mean, this is one thing that ultimately drew me to when I was living in my sort of ANCAP world and and kind of was in the neither left nor right sort of mindset. The thing that's always drawn me to the right is it's just much more intellectually rigorous. There's selective exceptions that prove the rule among the so-called left, and I mean I might even call Alex Karp. I mean, he's had plenty of very cringy things that he said, and he's definitely sees himself as a progressive. But like, I mean, there's a lot of him that's very much not left wing as well, and really the whole left wing, right wing is fake and gay. But there's clearly much more intellectual rigor on the what's referred to as the right wing. And now, The Atlantic, David Brooks himself is recognizing and respecting that. This article is History is Running Backwards: Why Reactionaries Are Taking Over the World by David Brooks. So I'm going to give you guys a chance to eat a little leftist ass, and then we are going to read this as soon as I get back.
I will eat your leftist ass like corn on the cob. I'm ready. I will eat your ass. I will eat your leftist ass like corn on the cob. I'm ready. I will eat you. I will eat your ass. My children aren't going hungry. I'll do it. I'll drink your blood. And I'm starting to think about having to eat my neighbors. You think I like sizing up? I'm gonna haul him up back chain. Chop his ass up, size it up. I'm gonna haul him up back chain. Chop, 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 chop. I will eat your leftist ass like corn on the cob. I'm ready. I will eat your ass. I will eat your leftist ass like corn on the cob. I'm ready. I will eat you. I will eat your ass. I'll barbecue your ass flat. I will cook your ass up so fast, and I'll tell them, well, I killed a cow out back, baby. You think Christ would eat somebody? He would never do that. I will. I'm ready to hang them up, gut them and skin them and chop them up. You know what? I'm ready. I will eat your leftist ass like corn on the cob. I'm ready. I will eat your ass. I will eat your leftist ass like corn on the cob. I'm ready. I will eat you. I will eat your ass. I will eat your leftist ass like corn on the cob. I'm ready. I will eat your ass. I will eat your leftist ass like corn on the cob. I'm ready. I will eat you. I will eat your ass. And that's why I want the globalists to know. I will eat your ass first. I swear to God, if it's the last thing I do, I'm gonna get my hands around your throat.
Man, it is still, we were supposed to get some rain this week, but it is still absolutely downpouring out there. I don't know if you guys heard the emergency alert that came through a little bit ago, but it's because there's a flash flood warning, because that happens around here. All right. History is Running Backwards: Why Reactionaries Are Taking Over the World, published in The Atlantic on April 16th by David Brooks. Please do remember to tip your streamer, tips.kingpilled.com. Maybe you've seen photos of Tehran in the 1970s, just before the Islamic Revolution. Images of young women going to work in miniskirts, of couples making out in parks while wearing bell-bottoms, of people at pools in bikinis. It looks like Paris or Milan or Los Angeles. But in 1979, the revolution happened, and now Tehran looks like something from an earlier century. Sometimes I think that our whole world has become kind of like that, going backwards in time. The religious movements thriving in today's secularized age are the traditionalist ones that descend from large parts of contemporary culture. Not only the Shiite Islam of post-revolution Iran, but Orthodox Judaism and conservative Catholicism. Young Americans are flooding into Eastern Orthodox churches. Many of us thought that the world would get more democratic as it modernized, but for the past quarter century, we have seen a reversion to authoritarian strongmen. Donald Trump, acting like some 16th century European prince, has made the presidency his own personal fiefdom. Vladimir Putin borrows ideas from reactionary thinkers such as Alexander Dugin, an Eastern Orthodox anti-liberal philosopher who rejects the Enlightenment, to justify his imperial conquest of Ukraine. If you go on social media, you can see photos of trad wives baking cookies for their husband and 5 kids. Jason Miranchuk mentioned, the Secretary of Health and Human Services and his followers don't trust those newfangled inventions, vaccines. So true. In 1999, it seemed that world affairs would be dominated by multilateral groups such as the European Union and the World Trade Organization. But now we're back to 19th century style great power rivalries between China and the United States, between Russia and Europe. Trump's new national security strategy has even revived the Monroe Doctrine. We used to have a clear idea of where modernity was heading, toward greater autonomy and equality, secularism, stronger individual rights, cultural openness, and liberal democracy. Progress was supposed to lead to the expansion of individual choice in sphere after sphere. Science and reason would prosper, while superstition and conspiracy mongering would wither away. I mean, this is The Atlantic, and it is David Brooks, so it's definitely very, very just pure distilled shit libbery. But it stood out to me. It was very interesting, particularly as you get toward the end, just how honestly, like an actual fair shake that he is attempting to provide to these ideas that he finds so repellent personally. Turns out that was yesterday's vision of the future. Billions of people around the world looked at where history was heading and yelled, "Stop!" They see that future as too spiritually empty, too lonely, too technological, too polluted, too confusing, too incoherent. Whatever their specific complaint, they are driven by a sense of loss, a desire to go back to a simpler, happier, and more sustainable time. Part of the brilliance of the phrase, "Make America Great Again," is that it taps into that sense of nostalgia and loss. Periods of great disruption inevitably produce yearning for an earlier golden age, and ours is no different. You can tell what kind of a reactionary a person is by asking them what era they want to go back to. For some MAGA dudes, it's the Roman Empire when men were men. For some theocrats, it's the Middle Ages when men were monks. Yeah, men aren't monks anymore. It was just during the Middle Ages. In the US, many on the right want to go back to the social mores of the 1950s. Men in the workplace, women at home. White people on top. Epic levels of church attendance. And wholesome fairs such as Oklahoma and Leave It to Beaver on stage and on television. Meanwhile, many on the left want to go back to that decade's union and manufacturing-led economy, or to the utopian socialism of the 19th century. Our politics is drenched in nostalgia. Those of us who believe in progress and the values of the Enlightenment tend to be condescending toward these reactionary impulses. We assume that the reactionaries are unsophisticated, intransigent, parochial, afraid of the freedom that modernity brings. It's futile to think you can turn back the clock, we say. But civilizations turn back the clock all the time. The Italian Renaissance can be seen as a concerted artistic and intellectual effort to return to classical Greek and Roman times. In Lost Enlightenment, the historian S. Frederick Starr recounts how, during the Middle Ages, Central Asia went from being the most scientifically and economically advanced region of the globe to falling behind Europe. During the Ming Dynasty, China stopped exploration and de-emphasized scientific progress. The 18th century French Enlightenment cult of reason produced the 19th century Romantic cult of passion as a counter-reaction. The 19th century explosion of industrialization produced the Neo-Gothic reaction, led by people such as John Ruskin, who celebrated pre-machine living. For much of the 20th century, faith and progress was the guiding ideology of modernity. he just went and said it. Think of all those world's fairs and theme parks, the giddiness about the wonders of Tomorrowland. The faith in progress was not only a technological one, flying cars, but a spiritual and moral one. Many, including me, derived meaning from the belief that we were contributing to social progress. Today, however, billions of people have lost that faith in progress as a source of meaning and are flocking to its opposite. In the 21st century, traditionalism has emerged as a catalytic school of thought. Reactionaries are propelling events, shifting culture and history in their direction. If we want to understand where all of this is taking us, we need to understand what's driving them and where they get their beliefs. And to contend successfully with the traditionalists' effects on our politics and culture, we also need to recognize what elements of their worldview are correct. But which parts are correct and which are completely off the rails. So we're making progress here, ironically. We're making progress to where now, to the shit lib publishing in The Atlantic, the reactionaries actually have parts of their worldview that are correct. They're not just like completely irredeemable subhumans. If you go spelunking into the mind of a traditionalist of a more intellectual sort, you'll usually find Oswald Spengler somewhere deep inside. The first volume of Spengler's The Decline of the West was published in 1918, just as the First World War was winding down. He argued that each culture has its own unique soul, comprising its habits, customs, and myths. Like any living organism, each culture grows, matures, ages, and dies. In their youthful phases, they display great creativity, a flowering of the arts, and a fusion of strong personalities. As they transition to maturity and eventually senescence, they urbanize and bureaucratize. Elites lose moral authority, and creativity withers. Spengler argued that Western culture emerged around the end of the 10th century. He called it Faustian. It was individualistic, expansionary, acquisitive, insatiable in its striving. Once a culture slips into its decline phase, it becomes imperialistic and materialistic, and technologists drive what happens. The political system slides into what Spengler called Caesarism, rule by despots. Urbanization and industrial growth create masses of atomized people susceptible to demagoguery. Financial power is concentrated in impersonal institutions, weakening the old elites. Large-scale bureaucracy leads to a centralization of power. When crises hit, people want decisive authority. If you believe that our society is in decline, Spengler's sweeping theories describe and explain what is happening today. If Spengler was part of the cultural determinist wing of the interwar reactionary movement, René Guénon was part of the mystical wing. Both men believed that the West was in decline, but for different reasons. While the historian Mark Sedgwick was researching his superb book Traditionalism, Dugan told him that what Karl Marx is to communism, Guénon is to traditionalism. Guénon was born in central France in 1886. Throughout his life, he studied various forms of spiritual knowledge: Gnosticism, Islam, Taoism, Hinduism. He was not a political writer, but a metaphysical one who believed that different religions are living links to the same underlying cosmic truth. He also believed that Western civilization had turned away from the spiritual truth and was living through what Hindu thinkers call the Kali Yuga, the age of corruption and moral decline. Reading traditionalist writers, you find that each comes up with a different term for the spiritual deadness they associate with modern civilization. Spengler used the word Kulturverfall. For Guénon, the word was quantity. In his 1945 book, The Reign of Quantity and the Signs of the Times, he argued that in this phase of progressive materialization, the only things that can be counted are considered real. Only things that can be counted are considered real. In the modern age, Guénon continued, science dominates. Modern scientists think they are taking a cold, objective look at reality, but they are pitifully naive, stuck at the level of what scientific materialism and measurement will allow. A modern scientist, in the Guénon view, is oblivious to spiritual reality, which, to the traditionalist, is the primary reality, and so adopts a worldview that denies the existence of the metaphysical realm. The modern scientist is like someone who investigates the workings of an orchestra without the ability to hear music or even the awareness that music exists. All he can describe is bows scraping against strings and air flowing through wind instruments. His theories make a hash of what he is observing, leaving his readers in a flat, soulless realm of disjointed facts. The modern person senses a vacuum where his spiritual life should be. One interesting figure, I'll just say this real quick, one interesting figure, public figure, who has been heavily influenced by René Guénon is one Steve Bannon. The modern person senses a vacuum where his spiritual life should be. He covers the hole in his soul with ceaseless agitation, unending change, and ever-increasing speed. Quote, "The dominant impression today," Guénon wrote more than 80 years ago, "is an impression of instability extending to all domains," end quote. His commitment to traditional spirituality brought him eventually to Sufism, a mystical strain of Islam. He converted, moved to Cairo, married an Egyptian woman, and died there in 1951. Guénon had a profound influence on Julius Evola, an Italian writer who had a brief moment of celebrity in the American press in 2017 after the media revealed that the Trump advisor Steve Bannon had referenced Evola during a conference at the Vatican. The white nationalist Richard Spencer called Evola, quote, "one of the most fascinating men of the 20th century." Evola was born in Rome, fought as an artillery officer in World War I, and then became an artist in the Dada movement. He agreed with Guénon that we are living in an age of corruption that has turned its back on spiritual truth. In 1934, he published a manifesto called Revolt Against the Modern World. Evola broke with Guénon, however, by embracing politics after World War II and becoming the chief ideologue of the Italian far right. His views were anti-egalitarian, anti-liberal, anti-democratic. It's interesting that anti-democratic doesn't get a hyphen. I wonder why that is. He was pro-monarchy and pro-hierarchy and supported a racial caste system. He was post-liberal before being post-liberal was cool. Benito Mussolini was a big fan, but Evola criticized fascism for accepting too much of the modern world. What is necessary, Evola argued, is a race of masters who will lead a revolt from the depths. Any attempt to make a better world with spiritually stunted people will fail, because spiritually stunted people chase shallow, hedonistic values, and a noble society can be built only by those whose lives are oriented toward spiritual excellence. Evola was political, where Guénon was not, bluntly racist, where Guénon was not. Gábor Vona, a prominent hard-right politician in Hungary, called Evola, quote, one of the greatest thinkers of the 20th century, in the foreword to a 2012 selection of Evola's writing titled A Handbook for Right-Wing Youth. Today, many of us look at Europe's far-right parties and see pseudo-stormtroopers. But those parties see themselves as a spiritual vanguard trying to preserve the highest registers of the soul. It's bizarre reading The Atlantic and seeing them trying desperately to steel man the people who they see as demons. Understanding contemporary traditionalism requires understanding its intellectual underpinnings in the thinking of these forefathers. All traditionalists tell a story about a time when people were rooted in stable homes and a way of life that got destroyed by a historic rupture that ushered in the soulless modern era. Whether they call that era Faustian civilization, Spangler, the age of quantity, Guénon, the Kali Yuga, Guénon and Evola, or something else, kind of a little false equivalency there between Spangler and the others. Today's traditionalists do not agree on when history took a wrong turn, but they all tell some sort of decline story. It's an empirical fact that basically everything in our day-to-day lives has gotten worse over the years, the right-wing podcaster Matt Walsh has written. The quality of everything, food, clothing, entertainment, air travel, roads, traffic, infrastructure, housing, etc., has declined in observable ways, end quote. R.R. Reno is the editor of First Things, one of the most influential Catholic traditionalist magazines in America. Reno's story of decline doesn't really start until just after World War II. During the first half of the 20th century, he argues, Westerners lived amid rivers of blood, wars, revolutions, genocides. After the Nazis were defeated, many people across the West concluded that the savagery had been unleashed by strong attachments to nations, ideologies, homeland, race. To head off future world wars, people across a range of sectors felt it necessary to create a culture that would prevent the strong beliefs and loyalties that might lead to fanaticism and war. A representative example is the philosopher Karl Popper, a champion of the scientific method, who wrote The Open Society and Its Enemies. A champion of the scientific method is such a silly phrase to write. He was a champion of the scientific method. It's like, scientific method is cool and all, but like identifying someone as, oh, what a hero. He was a champion of employing the basic thing called the scientific method. He wrote The Open Society and Its Enemies, which celebrates minds and nations that are not closed around core truths, but are instead perpetually open to new possibilities. Forms of critical thinking were elevated to undermine grand philosophies. Moral relativism, the idea that it's up to each person to find their own values and truth, prevailed. Children were raised in permissive environments to foster greater pluralism. As Reno puts it in Return of the Strong Gods, post-war thinkers came to a fundamental conclusion, quote, whatever is strong, strong loves and strong truths, leads to oppression, while liberty and prosperity require the reign of weak loves and weak truths. End quote. This cult of openness, Reno observes, was bipartisan. Liberals believed in lifestyle freedom and conservatives believed in economic freedom, but they both believed in the primacy of individual choice. You do you, I'll do me. But all of this openness didn't lead to a nirvana of free individuals. It led, the traditionalists believe, to a society in which social bonds were attenuated. It led to a nihilistic society in which people could find no grand purpose. It led to a consumerist society in which people shopped to fill their spiritual void. It led, in Reno's words, to, quote, disillusion, disintegration, and deconsolidation. Unable to identify our shared loves, Reno writes, we cannot identify the common good, the race and res publica. Civic life collapses. Though today traditionalism mostly lives on the right, it sometimes emanates from the far left. The British writer Paul Kingsnorth, for instance, was a radical left environmentalist before becoming an Orthodox Christian traditionalist. The two positions are not so different. Both reject technocratic modernity. Kingsnorth has his own term for the spiritual deadness of modern life, the machine, which, in his telling, comprises all of capitalist technocratic society. In his book Against the Machine, he describes a visit to a grocery store. Quote, I saw the sheer unnaturalness of this way of obtaining food, and the unnaturalness, too, of our wandering these straight-lined, strip-lit plastic aisles inside this giant metal box, instead of gathering mushrooms from a forest floor. Kingsnorth's writing has a strong, small is beautiful hippie vibe, but he goes beyond that. Quote, the degree of control and monitoring which we endure in developed societies, which has been accelerating for decades and which has reached warp speed in the 2020s, is creating a kind of digital holding camp in which we all find ourselves trapped. He sees the ideology of the machine as a, quote, liberation of individual desire, end quote, that effaces our communal civilizational bonds and turns our world into, quote, a blank slate to be written on afresh when the old limits of nature and culture are washed away. This is our faith, that breaking boundaries leads to happiness, end quote. The machine is not only a system outside of us, but a state of mind within us, one built around rationalism, economics, scientism, optimization, and efficiency. Its impulse is to use pure reason to achieve power, control, and domination. We like to think the Nazis were fanatics who operated outside of reason. Not so, Kingsnorth argues. They were consummate embodiments of the rationalist project, using social science to engineer what they took to be the optimal society. The rationalist machine seeks to merge your mind with the AI bots that are turning you into something less than fully human. Kingsnorth quotes a famous line from Wendell Berry, quote, the next great division of the world will be between people who wish to live as creatures and people who wish to live as machines. What do the traditionalists offer as a replacement for contemporary culture? First, they offer roots. The master trend of modernity is freedom. You get to do what you want. You can go to college far away, move from city to city, surf through different cultures and lifestyle options. This traditionalist charge leads to an aimless, ephemeral life. The modern person belongs everywhere and nowhere at once, Alan Noble, a literature professor at Oklahoma Baptist University, writes in You Are Not Your Own, Belonging to God in an Inhuman World. Such a person is perpetually sampling experiences but is not rooted. When the so-called abundance progressives argue that America has a housing crisis, the traditionalists counter that what America really has is a home crisis. Cultural change and mass immigration mean that people can't even feel at home in their own country. So true. Traditionalists, by contrast, offer stable attachments. For the traditionalist, the primary unit of modern social life is not the sovereign, free-choosing individual. It is the social covenant that connects people. We are not born into a void. We are born into particular families, particular neighborhoods, particular tribes, particular faiths. Your life is connected via a great chain of bonds to your ancestors, whom you honor, and to future generations, whom you serve. In the traditionalist imagining, people are planted in the spot of earth where the bones of their ancestors lie, the place where they can be intimately known and deeply loved, where stories and skills get passed down by elders, and where they know the hills and trees so well that their contours are carved into the heart. Living up to your covenantal obligations constitutes the essence of moral life. Traditionalists are willing to accept limits on their freedom if it enables them to live within a local network of strong attachments that give life meaning. Second, traditionalists offer enchantment. Moderns, they believe, live within what Max Weber called the iron cage of rationalism and bureaucracy, which is denuded of any enchantment. The goals of science and capitalism are pragmatic, materialistic, and instrumental. In a disenchanted world, religion withers, and so do the humanities, the poetic, and the spiritual. To borrow from R. Reno, why read Middlemarch when you can learn about marriage from a behavioral economist armed with studies, correlations, and standard deviations? Traditionalists generally believe in a transcendent realm of the spirit that exists above and prior to the world we experience through our senses. This transcendent level of reality is independent of you. It is ordained by God, contained within the mysteries of nature, expressed through myth and song more than through analytical thinking. Every culture, whether it knows it or not, is built around a sacred order, Kingsnorth writes. This does not, of course, need to be a Christian order. It could be Islamic, Hindu, or Taoist. It could be based on the veneration of ancestors or the worship of Odin, but there is a throne at the heart of every culture, and whoever sits on it will be the force you take your instruction from. End quote. Third, traditionalists offer moral order. Good and evil are not matters of personal choice. Natural law is woven by God into the fabric of the universe. Traditionalists get worked up when they find themselves in a culture that can no longer define what a woman is, because they believe that categories like gender are elemental to natural law. Little equivocation there. Categories like gender. It'd be categories like sex. Gender is fake and gay. The fourth thing that traditionalists offer their flock is protection against the cultural depredations of modernity. Modern progressives decry the evils of colonialism, but to the traditionalist, progressives are themselves colonialists. Their educators determine what ideologies will be pumped into your kid's brain. Their psychologists redefine how you should raise your family. Their thought police determine what words can come out of your mouth. To the traditionalist, professional experts, social workers, university administrators, therapists, DEI officers, and the media, are the stormtroopers of elite domination. In response to all of this, traditionalists seek to help people recapture control of their own culture. The people I'm quoting in this essay are mostly intellectuals, but their loyalty is with the working class because they share, or at least think they share, the same beliefs. Lower middle class culture, now as in the past, is organized around family, church, and neighborhood, the historian Christopher Lasch wrote in The True and Only Heaven. It values the community's continuity more highly than individual advancement, solidarity more highly than social mobility. The working class doesn't require seminars to teach it traditionalism. It grasps the concept intuitively. The culture war between the modernists and the traditionalists is not just between classes within nations, but between civilizations. Every few years, the World Values Survey studies various cultures around the globe. Protestant Europe and the English-speaking world, including the United States, stand out for the tremendous emphasis on individual autonomy, self-expression, and secular social values. Most of the rest of the world places higher value on traditional family arrangements, the importance of religion, and respect for authority. We moderns may think we own the future, but the traditionalists like their chances. If this is a global culture war, it's the whole world against us. It's very interesting that you're now seeing this shift where this mouthpiece of the regime, the liberal order, is now beginning to view the right wing as actually a collectivist. They're like, wait a second, we're the actual liberal individualists, and the right-wingers, the traditionalists, are the collectivists. You're seeing an inversion of the poles here. The reason I've dwelled at such length on the tenets and features of traditionalism is that I want my description to be accurate enough that traditionalists will see themselves in it, and to be detailed enough that even progressive, enlightenment-loving moderns might understand the appeal of traditionalist ideas. I confess that I feel a modicum of sympathy for some of the traditionalist arguments. One of my favorite insights from psychology is that a successful, well-adjusted life consists of daring explorations from a secure base. The traditionalists are right to say that one of the central problems in America and the West today is that many people have lost that secure base. A stable home and community, solid emotional connections, financial security, a coherent culture, and an understanding that our lives are contained within a shared moral order. My problem with the traditionalists is that I don't agree with them about what a flourishing life looks like. Traditionalists strike me as the kind of people who would score extremely low on the personality trait called openness to experience. They focus overwhelmingly on the secure base and seem to have no interest in daring adventures. They seem to want to lead stationary lives. This is funny. He says they seem, which is okay, fair. He did say seem, but in my experience, there's quite a bit of openness to experience present within the traditionalist mindset. Like you can recognize and respect and maybe like adhere to tradition while also being very open to experience. Those things are not at odds with each other. Yours truly, I'm like 98th percentile on openness to experience. That's fine. Different strokes for different folks. But the traditionalists distort history when they write it as if all people have always wanted stationary lives, and our goal as a society should be to make stationary lives the norm. All traditionalists, from Spangler to Kingsnorth, tell a story about a historic rupture that destroyed the ancestral culture and gave rise to the rootless, soulless modern era. But no such historic rupture ever happened, nor has there been a moment when humans were forever content to stay within the safety of their village. History has always been lived within the tension between the desire for security and the desire for learning, exploration, movement, and growth. The early hominids of the species Homo erectus may have loved their small African communities 1.9 million years ago, but they still ventured forth to places as far as China and Indonesia. The early Polynesians may have loved their home islands, but they still felt the urge to explore and settle an array of tiny islands and an expansive ocean spanning millions of square miles. And they did this in a time without modern navigation devices, when one slight steering error could set you astray in the enormous empty Pacific. Human beings have a need for both security and exploration, for both belonging and autonomy, for both stability and innovation. Our lives are propelled by these contradictions, which can never be resolved. Frankly, I don't disagree with this at all. I think he's exactly right. Traditionalists are trying to live the monist dream, the dream that we can build a society in which all of the pieces fit neatly together. But the many and diverse values that humans cherish will never fit neatly together. In every culture, groups argue over which values should have priority in present circumstances. There's never been a tranquil resting spot, and there never will be. Some traditionalists talk as if earlier medieval Christendom is the static utopia they yearn for. I mean, and frankly, this is true. There are plenty of this is a fair critique of many of the traditionalist minded. And this is kind of one thing that, part of why I wanted to read this article, along with all the Palantir stuff and the tech right, the much more ambitious, explorative kind of character of Silicon Valley that I think is a great value, is because I think a lot of the traditionalist minded people are too fearful, inclined toward static, inclined toward they're like trying to withdraw from the world rather than going out and engaging in the world. Once upon a time, people lived close to the soil and were enveloped by faith. Creek money!
They don't understand the things I say on Twitter.
I also like my socialists open to traditional nationalist adventurism.
So true, Creek money. What a great point. Traditional nationalist adventurous socialists. Those are my people right there. Thank you for the $88. We're less than $100 away from the goal. We still got time. You got maybe 10 minutes or so. So if we're going to do another drawing today, then less than $100. Trust Plan Star says, how is it possible that he wrote all those fairly good explanations of traditionalists and then goes into turbo libtard straw man argument about lack of openness? Yeah, libtards are going to libtard, right? Living Dead says, maximum openness is noise. The openness isn't even actively selected. It's imposed through environment. Yeah, good call. Once upon a time, people lived close to the soil and were enveloped by faith, until those dehumanizing forces of democracy, capitalism, science, and technology ruined everything. The sarcasm is dripping. But Judaism and Christianity are not separate from democracy, capitalism, science, and the rest of modernity. In fact, they provided many of the rules and ideas that are the basis of post-Enlightenment modernity. All humans are morally equal. Respect individual conscience. History moves in a linear direction. Every person has their own calling as well as inalienable rights. Jesus was hardly a supporter of stasis. He was a Jewish radical who turned all the power structures of his society upside down. Gee, so if Christianity is not separate from democracy, capitalism, science, and the rest of modernity, and in fact provided many of the rules and ideas that are the basis of it, then perhaps we shouldn't be doing everything we can to purge it from modernity. Let me offer my own historical narrative and talk about where it overlaps with the traditionalist one, where it diverges. The story I tell is a long procession of stumbles. Some eras are more communal and some eras more individualistic. Some are more religious and some are more secular. But in the West, these cultural shifts have mostly been led by people trying to move humanity forward in response to the needs of the moment. The stumbling process can be ugly. Wars, atrocity, communism. But generally, we have stumbled forward. At Harvard, the cognitive scientist Steven Pinker spent a decade or so collecting an Everest of data, showing that life since the Enlightenment has been getting more peaceful, more affluent, more comfortable, happier, and more learned, as well as simply longer. And our progress is not just material, it's moral. You could not get through an article from David Brooks in The Atlantic without a reference to Pinker or Fukuyama. You knew that it was going to happen. Things that our society used to tolerate, torture, slavery, and cruelty, have been deemed unacceptable by both law and custom. As if society used to just tolerate these things. Society used to just tolerate cruelty. People were like, oh yeah, that's just cruelty. But now we don't do cruel things at all. You know, like cue the photos from COVID of kids at their desks with plastic bubbles around them, standing in lines with masks on their face. We don't do cruelty anymore. The late political scientist James Q. Wilson wrote in The Moral Sense that, quote, the most remarkable change in the moral history of mankind has been the rise, and occasionally the application of the view, that all people, and not just one's own kind, are entitled to fair treatment. Yeah, gee, I wonder where that came from. Where did we get the idea that all people, and not just one's own kind, are entitled to fair treatment? I look across the past 70 years the traditionalists say are filled with moral rot, and I see an astounding widening of the circle of concern. Segregation and racism have been reduced. Billions of women have a greater chance to gain power and professional success equal to men. And now all of a sudden, segregation and racism have been reduced. We don't need to have moral panics about it. They've already been reduced. Colonialism has been repudiated. We've seen the greatest reduction in global poverty in the history of the world. America has expanded opportunity beyond white Protestant men. We've even passed laws to reduce cruelty to animals. But even in the historical story I tell, every moment of great cultural or social advance has had a cost. Over these past 70 years of progress, our culture has moved in the direction of autonomy, individualism, and choice. This has generated creativity and freedom, but it has weakened the bonds between people and the elemental commitments that precede choice to family, neighborhood, faith, and nation. Incredibly true and incredibly well stated. The elemental commitments that precede choice. That's a bar, I gotta be honest. As part of this general tendency toward individualism, we have privatized morality, telling people to come up with their own values. Freedom is great, but not if you don't know what ultimate end you are seeking. Another bar. Freedom is great, but not if you don't know what ultimate end you are seeking. Our modern individualistic culture has fallen for the belief that individuals are capable of devising their own morality. No historical evidence supports this belief. As we've advanced scientifically and technologically, we've forgotten something that the traditionalists understand. People absorb their moral values, their sense of purpose, and their way of life from within a tradition. The most important text of the Western moral tradition is the Bible. Even figures who are not great or conventional religious believers, such as Shakespeare, Jefferson, and Lincoln, knew their Bible. The second most important tradition of moral wisdom is the body of work we call humanism, the great novels, paintings, poems, dramas, histories, and philosophical tracts by thinkers and artists from all over the globe. In our rush toward autonomy, we have failed to pass down these sources of moral wisdom from one generation to the next. Bet you guys didn't expect to see The Atlantic advocating traditionalism and counter-signaling moral relativism, talking about the necessity of the social bonds that precede choice. The ethos of individualism has led us to cut ourselves off from our own traditions. We're so focused on the individual self that we fail to appreciate the millennia-long conversations within which each self swims. This rejection of tradition has been driven partly by ideology. In 1987, a group of progressive students from Stanford chanted, "Hey, hey, ho, ho, Western culture has got to go." Little Freudian slip there. They were part of a multi-generational effort led by people who thought that because Western civilization had produced colonialism, the whole collective wisdom of the Western tradition should be thrown in the trash. But I think the bigger cause was simple short-sightedness. Several generations of parents, educators, and students decided that the most important subjects to study are those that can help make you money. They didn't recognize the value of the humanities. The loss of civilizational and moral knowledge that this has entailed has had practical consequences. Sloppy thinking by people who have never been taught how to weigh evidence, reach conclusions, or recognize the flaws in their own reasoning. The astonishing decline in literacy, loneliness, the sense of purposelessness that marks so many lives. People who don't understand themselves or one another. How sick does a civilization have to be to not pass down its own sources of wisdom and meaning to its children? That's a very good question. How sick indeed. Because we have neglected our own humanistic traditions, a growing gap has opened between our scientific, technological, and economic progress on the one hand, and our social, emotional, and spiritual decay on the other. Fixing this problem doesn't require that we go back and live in monasteries and nunneries, nor do we have to confine ourselves to, say, the 1930s canon of Western Civ or the 1950s version of what constitutes high culture. It's funny that he talks about like having to go back and live in monasteries and nunneries, as if monasteries and nunneries aren't thriving and active and full of people today. I agree with the traditionalists that tradition is important, but I don't think of it as something we need to go back to. Rather, I see it as something that each generation pushes forward. And for this, we need a humanistic renaissance. In schools, universities, and culture at large, we need to focus more explicitly on the big questions of life. What is my purpose? How should the next generation live? What role should beauty play in my life? How do I build a friendship? What do I owe my spouse, my community, my nation? We need to use the best that has been thought and said by all of the great civilizations of the earth, but especially by Western civilization, which is our own particular home, our core resource while we try to stumble toward a better future. Though Christopher Lasch considered himself to be on the political left, he is sometimes embraced by the traditionalists for his celebration of rootedness, community, and the traditional family, and for his critique of the meritocratic elite. The populist tradition offers no panacea for all the ills that afflict the modern world, he wrote. It asks the right questions, but it does not provide a ready-made set of answers. End quote. The traditionalists have no panaceas either, but they also ask the right questions. They remind us how important it is to embed ourselves and our children within the great humanist conversation that extends back thousands of years. What we should take from the traditionalists is the idea that restoring our society's connection to its humanistic legacy and long-standing sources of meaning can actually help us better realize the promises of progress. Strange things are happening. We have Silicon Valley CEOs advocating for service guarantees citizenship and the role of the technocratic elite as guardians of civilization and promoters of the well-being of the people being devoted to the nation. And we have The Atlantic actually doing probably even more than lip service toward the idea of reviving tradition and the importance of connectedness to like cross-generational connectedness and preserving Western civilization. Remarkable things happening. We are going through a political realignment, and the signs are showing up all over the place. Yeah, talk about walking right up to the truth and straight up refusing to see it. Right, yeah, we got to grade on a curve, ultimately. Well Below Average says The Atlantic will publish this, but then go ahead and do a half dozen hit pieces on Trump or his staffers and cabinet, kind of like the old-timey porn mags would publish interviews with interesting people and porn. Yeah, Trust Plant Star says The Atlantic is hustler for libtards. That's really good. All right, very last thing, just a little quick bit here from Charlie Munger, and I'm just going to play it because it speaks for itself.
It's not my nature, when you get little surprises as a result of human nature, to spend much time feeling betrayed. I'm always want to just put my head down and adjust. So I don't allow myself to spend much time ever with any feelings of betrayal. So you're asking the wrong person, because if some flickering idea like that came to me, I'd get rid of it quickly. I don't like any feeling of being victimized. I think that's a counterproductive way to think as a human being. And I am not a victim. I'm a survivor.
You are, indeed.
Yeah.
Trump isn't doing mass executions of members of Congress. He betrayed me again. You must practice purging those sorts of thoughts from your mind. You must maintain, what'd you call it, like the sanitation of your thoughts. When you get those thoughts, I've been betrayed. That's just your ego talking. That is it's not helpful. Not productive. It's not going to make you better. It's not going to make anyone around you better. So purge those impulses from yourself. And make sure you listen to the Astrolabe. That's all I've got for you guys tonight, or this afternoon, or whatever time it is. Thank you guys for showing up. Stay tuned. Go follow the King Pill Telegram, or just follow me on X, or join the King Pill Discord, kingpill.com. And stay tuned. I'll let you know if I'm going to do the show tomorrow, or if I'm just going to swap Tuesday and Wednesday and take tomorrow off for other work and do the show on Wednesday instead. I got to go work some things out. I don't want to give away anything too much just yet because it's not mine to give away, but there's the possibility of a very exciting conversation happening with yours truly and some other people this week. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, appreciate all your guys' contributions to the tip goal, keeping my family clothed and fed. I'll be back tomorrow or the next day for another episode of the Astrolabe. Until then, I leave you with Hulk.
When they took a shot at my hero, and they tried to kill the next president of the United States, enough was enough.